You want to talk to us about the Western Cape violence.
Hi, Sister Joey. Are you well?
I'm so well, thanks. Go ahead, Jack.
He said, no, not Jack. JCK Kaunda from Musina. JCK
Sorry,
Kaunda from Musina.
sorry, JCK. Sorry about that.
You're welcome. My sister, this situation in Cape Town or in South Africa in particular, it won't come down. I mean, this of illness, the contributors or the product illness in South Africa, one is borders, two it's drugs. You know, everybody has got guilty conscience. I want to pull my gun and shoot at you. You understand? Without using drugs. Those people are drugged, which means he's a second person. Be himself or herself. They won't take guns and shoot at somebody. So the thing is drugs. If government can do away with the drugs and destroy the nest of drugs, you know, drugs here, the government doesn't take drugs seriously. Drugs is going to destroy our nation in South Africa. There won't be any future generation because government is ignoring entirely drugs. So government, it's time you wake up and deal with drugs that are there in Cape Town and deal with porous borders because as we speak to you, drugs are crossing, are being smuggled into the country. But government is aware of that. They don't do anything. If they're not aware, which means they're not with the nation.
Yeah, JCK.
Or maybe you've got something to say.
No, I agree with you. Thank you so much for that call. I mean, I think the issue of drugs is a massive one. It has ruined communities in South Africa, and we know because of the history of drug abuse in that area, right? I think it probably goes all the way back to the DOP system, if we look at it historically. Traditionally, that community has been oppressed by all forms of narcotics, including alcohol. And it has seeped into the fiber of that community to the point that that the lives of young people, of generations of young people, have been ruined in those areas. And if you listen to people like Deraline James speak of it, she speaks quite often about her own son's drug addiction and the battle that he's had to get back on the wagon. Those personal stories of mothers and families fighting for the lives of their young people that have been taken by drug abuse. It is just such a heartbreaking story, and I think absolutely the deployment of the army there is dealing with the symptoms of the problem, but it's not necessarily dealing with some of the core problems in the area, and that is a social problem that needs to be dealt with in conjunction with NGOs in the area, with social development experts, with government. There needs to be a concerted effort to do that. And JCK, I hear you on that. Thank you so much for that. Let's take a call from Durban now, my hometown. We've got Naidu on the line talking about sewage issues. What's going on in Durban, Naidu?
Hi, Joanne. Great show. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I just want to comment about that NMC that blaming the sewage problem on apartheid. You know what? I just wanted to apologize to the white community in South Africa in advance because I've decided to blame everything on apartheid going forward. I mean, how did we get to this point? Because basically, you can say I am the stupidest person that you come across. We get intelligent people, we get stupid people, and I can recognize a stupid person from across the mountain, across the ocean. And I just wanted to say that I apologize to the white community because even if my shoes are dirty, I'm going to blame apartheid from now on. Huh? I just don't understand.
But what has that got to do with the sewage issues in Durban right now? I mean, I know what you're saying, that this is not necessarily an apartheid issue, in that we've not inherited the administration of apartheid post-democracy. But talk to me about what you think is the problem in the municipalities or in other areas where you see this kind of problem currently raise its head.
The problem is a lack of integrity and lack of morals. I mean, okay, let's take the HIV issue. It's been swept under the carpet, right? I'll just give you an example. It's been swept under the carpet because we have the highest rate of HIV in the world. But because they're not talking about it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Okay, let's leave it there for now. Naidu, thank you very much for that. We'll talk more after the break.
Tommy, this one is for you. ithi ngukutshele. If you didn't replace your SASSA Gold card before, your turn is coming. From around April, you can replace it with the Postbank Black Card. It's simple. Bring your ID and visit a Postbank replacement site near you. For general questions, call Postbank Customer Care on 0800 53 54 55. To find active replacement sites, dial *120 *355 #. Postbank will never ask for your PIN. Terms and conditions apply.
Moro, Moni, Dumela, Bonjour, Habari. You arrived in South Africa to build something better. New place, new challenges, new responsibilities. Now you can with the Mama Money bank account. Pay your rent, take care of your daily needs, build your life, and when your family needs you, you don't wait. You send money home, quickly, securely, from wherever you are. Because this is more than money, it's progress. Buy your Mama Money card today at Pick n Pay or a Mama Money agent. Mama Money, now you can.
For 90 years, one voice has informed, challenged, and connected a nation. SAFM, South Africa's national English public radio station. Established in 1936 as the SABC's very first service, the A program, evolving through the English service, Radio South Africa to SAFM in 1995, shaping thought and strengthening democracy. From a full-spectrum station to a trusted home of news and talk, SAFM continues to lead the conversations 90 years strong. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to Joanne Joseph on SAFM.
24 minutes past 9 here on the Daily Discourse. Thank you for joining us if you've just tuned in. 2 weeks, that is the length of the ceasefire that's in place between the United States and Iran. In usual fashion, both sides are claiming victory, but even though it's temporary, the world is responding with an enormous sigh of relief. As part of the concessions, the US will stop bombing Iran for 2 weeks, and Iran will in turn reopen the Strait of Hormuz to allow ships to pass through. Naeem Jina is a senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute of Strategic Reflection. He joins us on the line now. Naeem, lovely to chat to you again after some time. It's a conditional ceasefire, but how significant a step towards peace is it?
Nice to talk to you, Joanne. It's very significant. I mean, on the one hand, Iran until last night was insisting that it's not going to be part of any ceasefire. It wants a permanent end. But this 2-week ceasefire is, in a sense, on Iran's terms. I mean, if you look at Trump's tweets, the plan on the table, the proposal on the table, is not Trump's 15-point proposal, it's Iran's 10-point proposal. And what Iran is seeking through that proposal is, firstly, a long-term end to the war, a permanent end to the war. Secondly, a whole range of things that are in Iran's favor, like lifting of all sanctions, primary and secondary, continued control of the Strait of Hormuz, ending all UN resolutions against Iran, nuclear program to continue, etc. So from Iran's perspective, this is a great ceasefire point, and that's why people have been celebrating in Iran last night. But it does signal the possible end. The possible spoiler, though, of course, is Israel. Already Israelis are saying that, well, for one thing, the Israeli political class is very unhappy because they were not part of the agreement for the ceasefire. It was imposed on them by the US. But secondly, they are insisting that Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire and they will continue their occupation of Lebanon, South Lebanon, even though the Pakistani mediators have explicitly said that Lebanon is included.
So, Naeem, this seems a bit strange to have concluded a ceasefire that excludes Israel. How much legitimacy does a ceasefire have if one of the main players in this action has not been included and has not bought into the resolutions?
So, yeah, I mean, it's been included in that Trump claims to speak for the U.S., for Israel, and for all the allies, the Gulf Arab states. That's what he claims. And Benjamin Netanyahu, who has basically accepted, and I think that many Israelis have accepted, that the current U.S. president is the last one that they're going to have that is as sympathetic to Israel as he has been. Netanyahu doesn't want to anger Trump, and so Netanyahu has said already, although he made it sound as if he was part of it, he said that he accepts the ceasefire. It's the others around him and opposition parties who have come out saying, yes, but we were not even consulted. So Netanyahu is in a place where he has no choice. Trump is very moody. He and his moodiness comes out publicly. And I don't think Netanyahu wants a situation where Trump issues a post on Truth Social attacking him. So he said that, yes, we accept the ceasefire. It's others in his cabinet who have said it doesn't include Lebanon and the broader political class that is making the noise that they achieve nothing out of this. But I don't think he has a choice.
Well, the peace talks are likely to continue in Pakistan on Friday. How do you expect they'll develop from there, Naeem?
Well, it seems that there's a mood to make them work. I mean, I don't see all of these 10 Iranian points being sellable. Clearly, the U.S. is going to push back on several of them, but it's from the Iranian perspective a maximalist starting point. If they get even a few of these, I think they would be happy. But it seems that the Americans are. I mean, Trump has been now for about the past 3 weeks or so been wanting to find an off-ramp, and he's now had it handed to him. He said that, the U.S. has achieved all its objectives, which is, of course, untrue. Iran no longer has missiles, no longer has a nuclear program, blah, blah, blah. But that's the way he's going to sell it to make it sound as if it's a victory for him. So I think that the talks will likely go well. There's also in the wings behind the Pakistanis, it seems that the Chinese are standing looking over their shoulders as well. From the Iranian perspective, however, even though there's massive celebrations on the streets, etc., the Iranians don't trust the United States and don't trust Israel. Remember that in the space of 8 months, on 2 occasions, they were in the midst of negotiations with the U.S. when the U.S. and Israel started bombing them. They had a deal with the U.S. on the nuclear program, with all the members, all the prominent members of the UN Security Council in 2014, and then Trump just tore that up in 2018. So they don't trust the Americans. I think that they're going to use these 2 weeks also to consolidate in case a war breaks out again.
A last quick question before we go to the news, Naeem. Full payment of compensation for reconstruction to Iran is on the cards as part of this 10-point plan. Who foots the bill for that? That I assume runs into billions by now, potentially.
So from the Iranian perspective, that bill should be footed by the U.S. and Israel. I think that particular clause is a non-starter. I don't think that they're going to win that. But what they'll do as a fallback is to say, okay, fine, we'll get our we'll get the money for the reconstruction, the reparations, if you like, from tolling the Strait of Hormuz together with Oman. So I think that's going to be the fallback position.
Naeem Jina, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning here on SAFM. It's just after 9:30. Here's Anne Musa with your latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks, Joanne. In the headlines, the Border Management Authority says 6 children who were intercepted while crossing into South Africa illegally at the Beitbridge border in Limpopo were reunited with their parents and deported to Zimbabwe. The Nkabinde inquiry into South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office, will resume today. 2 key witnesses, former KwaZulu-Natal Hawks head Major General Johan Boysen and Advocate Shireen Riley are set to take centre stage after the inquiry's Easter recess. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied Pakistan's assertions that the ceasefire includes the war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
9:32. Thank you for joining us here on the Daily Discourse with me, Joanne Joseph, and the team. Lovely to have you along. We're taking your calls here in the studio on our studio line 086 000 2032. Send us a WhatsApp on 0614 104 107 and keep your voice notes, please, to between 30 to 45 seconds. Lots of messages coming in on the WhatsApp line, and let me read some of those out now. One of them from earlier. Donald Trump finally got the off-ramp he needed in the US-Israel war. One of you says this is something he needed so much to get out of the war. He was getting pressure because he didn't think through it properly before he got started or involved in it. This is not a temporary ceasefire. It simply won't continue. What he is doing is to make it look like everyone needed it except himself to save face, when the truth is that he needed it more than anyone. And one of you says, good greetings, SAFM and team. Trust you're all blessed up. Like that, Michael. We've got a challenge with our local police station in Kliptown. The police station does not have any affidavit documents or papers when the public are in need. Instead, they give one a copy and they tell you to make a copy. Could you kindly advise how we can tackle that matter? Michael sent that through to us. And then a message on the burning of schools. One of you says, the burning of schools, government buildings indicates failure of the government and police to fight employment, crime and manage immigration effectively. Foreign undesirable school dropouts from ganglands and zamazamas will keep burning and destroying our infrastructure. And that is from Lindiwe. Let's listen to some of your voice notes as well. In a short while, we will be going through to those. And let me tell you what's coming up in the next half hour. How would you like a public service that really works for you? I mean, that would be the ideal situation, right? And it's what we've hoped and wished for since democracy dawned in this country. But it hasn't really worked out in that way at all. I think for many of us who engage the public service, we have moments where things work beautifully and we rejoice, and we sometimes go onto social media and we tweet about it, or we write about it and we say, wow, I had a wonderful experience here today. But by and large, people are still complaining about poor service within the civil service. And so we're talking about the changes that the president has recently signed into law. They are drastic changes, the most drastic changes since 1994. And I wonder what kind of public service this is going to lead to. So I'd like to know from you what you're hoping to see as we address this conversation. We're going into a conversation in a short while with the Public Service Commission. We're also talking to Corruption Watch, and we're taking these two points of view and we're kind of melding them into the idea of the public service that we want to see in this country. All right. So let's see if we have our guests on the line right now. We don't have them yet. So we're going to take a couple of voice notes. And we would love to hear from you on all of these stories that are making headlines today. The Madlanga Commission has also begun for the second time today, in a couple of days, when we are, it took a couple of weeks off. And now the TMPD's Yolanda Farrow is back in the hot seat. Yesterday, she spoke all about her experiences and I think what she wanted to convey about sort of alleged victimization as to what she experienced when she tried to clamp down on corruption within the Tshwane Metro Police Department. And so I think that is going to be an interesting thing today. We will bring you more on that. We'll bring you live coverage of the Madlanga Commission at 10 o'clock. Also happening, the president is receiving the letters of credence from all sorts of ambassadors today. So we'll keep you in the picture as to what's happening there.
You are listening to The Full Circle,
a space where generations come together in conversation that seek to spark curiosity, inspire innovation, and feed the curious mind. For arts, culture, and robust conversations, join me every weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga as we explore the stories, lessons, and conversations that guide us back to self.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Olani Gwala will be back again for you 6 to 9 Monday here on SAFM.
And
Thanks, Tolani. Good morning and welcome to Morning Talk with me, Kim Gabadeli.
The name is Bonge Kwala. Good to be with you till midday today. Let's engage South Africa.
Welcome to Morning Talk on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader, with me, Rowena Bird.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. The Daily Discourse. More than talk, real understanding.
All right, so starting our conversation here on the public service, I mean, at one time or another, most of us have been on the receiving end of a public service we were promised that never actually materialized. While there are undoubtedly pockets of excellence in the public service, South Africans still speak about the negative experiences they have almost on a daily basis. And their complaints range from poor service at hospitals to parents struggling to get their children into the right schools to the long queues at government offices or police who just don't take the rights of crime survivors seriously. We've just had that voice note, right, or that voice message from one of our listeners on WhatsApp saying the police don't have affidavits. So our people are constantly, every time they engage with the public service, taking the risk of not having that service delivered in the way it ought to be. But the president has now stepped in. He signed into law the biggest changes the public service has seen since the start of South Africa's democracy. So let's find out what the changes are and what potential benefits or drawbacks they may bring. Public Service Commissioner Vusimuzi Mavuso joins us on the line now. Mr. Mavuso, good morning to you and thank you very much for your time. I hope you're able to hear me, sir.
A very good morning to you and your listeners. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for making the time. So I understand the new laws radically decrease the powers of ministers and MECs for starters, stripping them of their previous rights to appoint staff members. Give me a sense of what kind of implications that will have for the public service.
I think you're putting it a little bit harsh, but I'll try to put it into context.
Yes, do that. Go ahead.
Frankly speaking, cumulatively, the amended versions of the Public Administration Management Act and the Public Service Act work in tandem to transform the public service and strengthen the role of the Public Service Commission by targeting professionalism, synergy, and oversight. These two pieces of legislation, frankly speaking, mark a critical step towards strengthening good governance, accountability, and professionalization within South African public administration. But I must actually mention this point, that the Public Service Administration, or rather the Public Service Act, provides for the professionalization of the public service through the following processes. One, placing emphasis on integrity, which is quite crucial, ethics, anti-corruption, as well as innovation and reforms. You will recall that both the Madlanga Commission and the Zondo Commission raised issues relating to integrity and ethics and anti-corruption. It also prohibits heads of departments and those who report to them from holding political office. For us, it's a game changer. And it also ensures the devolution of administrative powers from what we call executive authorities or your MECs and ministers to heads of departments or directors general or DDGs at the provincial level, thereby ensuring the effective management of the political administrative interface by providing for distinct powers for HODs, which in the main are administrative and executive authorities whose purview is within the realm of strategic focus or what we may call political responsibilities. This is the point that you mentioned. But amongst others, HODs are now empowered to deal with career incidents of their respective subordinates, like appoint staff, extend probation, or dismiss employees in line with the Labour Relations Act.
Right.
You will recall that previously this used to be something that MECs or ministers would want to do and carry out because career incidents of the heads of departments and some of the subordinates used to fall within their realm. But interestingly, it also extends the power of the Directors General in the presidency, or in the case of provinces, the Directors General who report to premiers to support their two principals in their capacity as the heads of the provincial administration.
Right.
Those changes are quite significant by any stretch of imagination, I would say.
I mean, I agree with you. So is the fact that employees of the civil service, heads of department and their advisors won't be able to hold senior positions in political party structures anymore. I mean, that clearly would be perceived, I think, by many as huge progress. Mr. Mavuso?
Indeed. I must underscore the point that you can't find a situation whereby an administrator, for want of a better word, is a chairperson of a party in a branch or in a region and also becomes the supervisor, I put it in quotes, of their own political principles in the department. It's an untenable situation. That in itself created serious divisions and conundrums to the extent that some of the political principles were actually hamstrung from performing their duties. That is now a thing of the past, and I think this should be commendable.
Well, let's bring into the conversation Corruption Watch's view. Website editor Janine Erasmus joins us on the line now. Ms. Erasmus, just overall, what is your impression of these new amendments to the law that has long existed and required amendment, but up to now hasn't seen the kind of sweeping changes that are coming into play?
Thank you, Joanne, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, from Corruption Watch's point of view, this is a big thing because we have been advocating for many, many years. We've been asking for merit-based appointments in the public sector. We've been asked for enhanced accountability. We've been asking for improved efficiency, and these reforms will go some way towards achieving that. Especially the part where the heads of department are empowered, more than what they used to be, and this actually it would definitely decrease the instances of political interference that we've been seeing in terms of what is known as cadre deployment. Where people put their own people in strategic positions for their own purposes. So, from Corruption Watch's point of view, this does definitely, this is a very big step forward.
I mean, there are also some concerns that the DG in the presidency has been given too much influence that concentrates most of the power in the presidency. Do you think that's a legitimate concern?
I'm not. I don't think. Well, I mean, Corruption Watch doesn't really have a stance on that. We haven't gone into all these these implications that closely. We followed the development of the Amendment Act, the Public Service Amendment Act, and the Public Administration Management Amendment Act, very closely. And as I said, we found that those, especially in terms of implementing the recommendations in the Zondo report, the Zondo Commission's report, this is this aligns with that. So what has happened is in our view a good thing.
Mr. Mavuso, to come back to you, we're emerging from a system in the public service where there are several examples of political lines of patronage running directly from political parties into the public service. Many of those working for the public service have had businesses on the side that have benefited from their positions within the public service. How do you start stamping out that culture, first of all? And is there a kind of transition period where those who own businesses and the like will be able to cut themselves off from those in order to dedicate their daily lives and work to the public service specifically without benefiting from being there on the side?
Let me take a step backwards and respond to the question that you raised to Ms. Erasmus around the question of cadre deployment and what have you, because the truth of the matter is that it's absolutely important for people to be appointed strictly on merit. Gone are the days when you could have your friends or your aunts and what have you who are going to appoint you because you're related or maybe you shared trenches of struggle together and all that. Meritocracy is what we believe is the cross-cutting point throughout the three spheres of government, which we believe is a very important difference. But as part and parcel of that process, the prohibition of public servants, both at provincial, national, including local government, from doing business with the state is a very important development, because we've seen a lot of shenanigans happening within this particular space. And we do believe that that has to be cut completely. In other words, chop the snake from its head and make sure that it never emerges again within the public administration. What is also important, if you look into the Act itself, it inserts a cooling off period of about 12 months for all employees who are involved in the different value chains of awarding contracts. In other words, they can't award a contract and then quickly jump off and go to company A, where they were part and parcel of making decisions, or whether it was in the bids and what have you, to be able to make those decisions and then benefit out of that. It's going to be a thing of the past. For us, it's a very, very crucial development, and we do believe that when this becomes, in fact, it has become effective from the 1st of April, we know that the Popehan dance, as they would say in Afrikaans, and we can't really drop our guards and let this go unattended to.
Talk to me about a skills audit, please, Mr. Mavuso, because I haven't really seen any reference to that. I think one of the big issues that the public service has struggled with are issues of corruption, issues of nepotism, issues of people being unqualified or underqualified to carry out their functions in the public service. Is a full skills audit on the cards?
The question of skills audit is an ongoing process. It has long started. It should not be viewed as an event that is going to start now. It has been continuing. And some of those who do not have the requisite skills have really been afforded an opportunity to say, why don't you have these qualifications? If you don't, what are you doing about them? The National School of Government has been going about making sure that the capacity building processes are taking place so that those who might not have opportunities to be able to do this and have been in the public service for much longer than we can imagine are afforded an opportunity to ramp up their skills and all that. But apart from that, the human resource units must enforce compliance-based recruitment with auditable processes by internal auditors, which is a very fundamental point. Coupled with that, of course, we do believe that the Auditor General or the Office of the Auditor General ought to play a role insofar as some of these governance failures that we've picked up, and including the investigative structures, USIUs, etc., they should really come on board when requested to, so that we can then be able to root some of the elements which are not worthy to be in the public service. For me, that's absolutely crucial.
I agree with you. I quite
takes
agree
two
with you.
hands to clap. We can't just do it all by ourselves. It should be all hands on deck to make sure that we root out all these elements and make sure that we keep a very clean and, most importantly, a service-oriented public service that is going to ensure that service delivery is the overriding aspect and nothing else.
Yes. Ms. Erasmus, I mean, do you agree with that? First of all, Mr. Mavuso is saying to us the skills audit is an ongoing process. Are you satisfied, number one, that it is effective enough? Number two, that the bodies that deal with corruption in this country, like the Special Investigating Unit, are in contact, in enough contact with the public service administrators to be able to effect justice or set justice in motion? Should employees be found to be wanting in what is allegedly a criminal manner?
Joanne, yes, I definitely agree with what my fellow guest has said. We definitely need the skills. We need to. We're talking about professionalizing the public service. So we need skilled people with the correct attitude, the correct ethics, the correct culture of service. Which is, we've got some of those now, but so many of them are not like that. So we need that culture to change. We need those attitudes to come in, and that is part of the process of professionalizing. We need people to be efficient in their jobs. We need them to be service delivery orientated. We need people who take their work seriously. So definitely, I agree with that. And in terms of the SIU, I don't know. It's definitely, there's always room for improvement. We've seen a lot of referrals to, for investigations, further investigations from the SIU in terms of, public servants that have been found wanting. But we haven't really seen the a thing happening with the top level employees. We've seen the management or middle management level being referred, but we haven't seen really these high-profile guys who, who are believed to be the ones driving a lot of the corruption. We haven't really seen those guys being held to account, and we definitely do need to see that, because it's going to be a crucial factor in rebuilding trust in the public service. So the SIU definitely needs to step up there, and also the NPA. We've seen how the NPA and other law enforcement agencies have been weakened over the past years, and they are rebuilding now. But they also need to step up their game and get these guys into court and have accountability at the highest level.
I mean, we know that government is pretty good at devising some of the most advanced legislation in the world. Our constitution is probably a very good example of that. But we also know, Ms. Erasmus, that implementation has consistently been a problem. Mm-hmm. Do you see that being a stumbling block here with the amendments to the current laws?
Well, that's a question of having to wait and see. But we have, as my fellow guest said, we have got, for instance, with the implementation of the framework for the professionalization of the public service, we've actually got the Auditor General overseeing that implementation. In the one of the latest meetings, parliamentary meetings, where the DPSA reported to the committee, the portfolio committee, they confirmed that the AG will be auditing compliance with that framework, and they will be reporting on it. So that is one step in ensuring that implementation does happen as it should. The other way, or there are various other ways. I mean, we've got civil society who keeps an eye on government's performance and calls them out when they do slip up. So that is very important. We need those external eyes on the implementation process, and also Parliament itself holding the DPSA to account in terms of the implementation of the professionalisation framework, and making sure that what is in there is implemented as desired or as required. So it's going to take a kind of a multi-stakeholder approach, I think, to make sure that this thing is implemented properly. But I think in terms of implementing generally, people are wise now to the fact that our government has implementation of laws and of legislation has not been their strongest point. So with this being such an important issue, then we will definitely be able to, we will be keeping an eye on it. I know from Corruption Watch's point of view, I can say that we will be keeping an eye on it, and we will be doing our best to make sure that with the other stakeholders, this thing will be done properly.
So, Mr. Mavuso, I mean, I think Ms. Erasmus is acknowledging here that these are quite radical changes. This is going to require a radical shake-up of the public service. But of course, some sort of time frame, even if it does take time, because it is a process, what sort of time frame have you got in mind to ensure that all of the changes that are on the cards from a legal point of view are implemented practically?
Perhaps where we need to start is to be able to appreciate the fact that the professionalization framework is now beginning to decant politics out of the administration, which is a very important point. That framework cannot really be viewed in splendid isolation. In other words, it cannot be viewed as something that is going to be implemented by Department A. It is all encompassing for all departments: the Department of Performance and Monitoring and Evaluation, DPSA, the Public Service Commission, etc., including Department of COCTA, would then have to be part and parcel of that, because we actually made inputs into the white paper process on local government, so that these three spheres will then be able to have a much more seamless approach, whereby the norms and standards would really be put on the same pedestal, so that when you say government, you can be able to talk about all three spheres and not in isolation. Equally important is the whole question of dealing with the political administrative interface, which has always been a problem. It has been a sticking, especially with national and provincial departments. But we can see tenets thereof are now beginning to rear their ugly heads in local government, in municipalities. We've created a framework that deals specifically with that because it emanates from the professionalization framework. And it really draws a clear distinction of powers for the administrative and the political, so that there shouldn't be any blurring of lines. We do believe that when these matters are put to the fore, all departments and all agencies involved will be able to assist in making sure that we can deal with any problem as a through its ugly head. And I do believe that as we proceed, then we're able to say things are really happening. The auditability of this is dependent upon all the role players and stakeholders. But I do believe that once, of course, the regulations have been clarified, they will indicate the extent to which the timeframes will be articulated and outlined, and the implementation thereof, of course, will have to be strictly monitored so that we can see value for money emanating from these processes. For us, it's absolutely important because as long as we have removed politics from the administration, we can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel and it's not an oncoming Gautrain train, so to put it.
Mr. Mavuso, a last question to you about getting the buy-in of the average member of the public service. You've got those who've come to work every day and who've worked really hard and done their bit for the country. And then you've got those who've sauntered into work every day and sat around taking multiple lunch breaks, not assisting the members of the public with the services they ought to be assisting them with, and who've flown under the radar, quite frankly. People who've not been qualified necessarily to do the job and who've got away with not doing their work for a number of years now. How do you get the buy-in of those people who are going to feel hard done by when they realize that actually they're expected to do their jobs just like everyone else in this country?
Thanks for the question, but what is important is to make sure that the performance management system can then be able to measure if people are really putting the hours and the worth into the work they are doing. There's no point in coming to work at 7 o'clock and leaving at 4, but one can't necessarily be able to say this is what you did for the day. The managers are now allowed to manage and do their work and make sure that people really get their money's worth, or especially the ordinary man in the street. They can then be able to say, we can see services are being performed and done, and those who are actually given the responsibility to do that are actually doing that accordingly. If we can't measure what is being performed, then we do have a serious problem. I do believe that, for me, it's a point of departure. That should be emphasized. It doesn't matter whether you're a sweeper or whatever, etc., whatever career you're doing. Every piece of work has to be measured and be remunerated accordingly. Anyone who doesn't pull their weight surely do not belong in the public service. They are no longer civil servants. They've become evil servants, and they really have to decide to leave and make sure that those who want to come in can then be able to do their work accordingly.
That's my phrase of the day, Mr. Mavuso. Thank you so much for your time on the program today. Commissioner Vusimusi Mavuso of the Public Service Commission and Janine Erasmus, website editor at Corruption Watch. As Mr. Mavuso says, if you're not a hard-working civil servant, you are an evil servant.
This is the Madlanga Commission update on SAFM.
All right, it is 10 o'clock here on the Daily Discourse. We're taking our latest news bulletin with Anne Musa, who's standing by. Following that, we go straight to the Madlanga Commission.
Thanks, Joanne. In our top stories, 6 undocumented children deported to Zimbabwe, and Nkabinde inquiry resumes with 2 new witnesses. Good morning. The Border Management Authority says 6 children who were intercepted while crossing into South Africa illegally at the Beitbridge border in Limpopo were reunited with their parents and deported to Zimbabwe. The children, aged between 7 and 12, were intercepted with the help of the South African National Defence Force yesterday. BMA Assistant Commissioner Dr. Nkuluseni Lubengo says their parents were also undocumented and were trying to enter the country illegally.
We have engaged with the Department of Social Development on the basis of the discussion that they had at the interviews that they had with the children. They found that 3 children obviously had one parent, and then other children also had parents that were obviously traveling with them. Because there was confirmation that they had parents, we didn't place them under obviously a place of safety. We had to unfortunately to deport them together with their parents because they didn't have all the travel documentation.
The Nkabinde inquiry into South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office will resume today. 2 key witnesses are set to take centre stage after the inquiry's Easter recess. Former KwaZulu-Natal Hawks head Major General Johan Boysen and Advocate Shireen Riley are among those expected to give evidence. Boysen's testimony is anticipated to focus on high-profile investigations and past clashes with the National Prosecuting Authority. Elderis Mashaba reports.
Boysen's and Riley's evidence come after the conclusion of Chauke's testimony. Chauke has denied any wrongdoing, insisting that his decisions were lawful and taken independently. However, retired National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batoy, disagrees. She said Chauke had brought the NPA into disrepute and recommended the inquiry into his fitness to hold office. The matter is expected to be decided by the end of May, when the panel will submit their report to President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Civil society organisation, the Forum for South Africa, FOSA, says Police Sergeant Fanning Nkosi's arrest must be the start of a wider probe. FOSA has warned against targeting only middlemen while the real culprits go free. This as Nkosi remains in custody until the 13th of this month for bail application. Nkosi faces charges including theft and possession of illegal ammunition following a raid at his Pretoria home. This all came after Nkosi's testimony at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into criminality in the country's criminal justice system. Tebuho Mashilompane is FOSA's national leader.
It's clear and simple. Investigations must start also from the top. Even if you start at the back, but you must ultimately go up. Because we don't want a situation where the network still continues, as long as the top ones are not arrested. But we hear that there's fear of people investigating certain type of people, the politicians and the powerful. They are scared to investigate them.
A 40-year-old traditional healer accused of sexually abusing 2 boys is expected to appear in the Eikenhoek periodical court north of Bushbuck Ridge in Mpumalanga. Jabu Ngobeni is accused of molesting primary school boys over the past 10 years. Ngobeni abandoned his bail application in the previous appearance due to safety concerns. It's alleged that the accused lured the victims by giving them money and also buying them bicycles. And finally, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has denied Pakistan's assertions that the ceasefire includes the war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Israeli offensive in Lebanon has killed over 1,000 people and displaced over 1 million others. The BBC's Daniel De Simone has the details.
It's a statement from his office, and it makes clear that this is President Trump's decision to announce a ceasefire. It's not Israel's decision. It says that Israel supports President Trump's decision. But there's a key conflict has emerged here, because the statement from the Israeli Prime Minister's office says that this 2-week ceasefire will not include Lebanon. And as we've heard, the statement from Pakistan's Prime Minister says the agreement does include Lebanon. Statement from Iran also says the agreement includes Lebanon. We've yet to hear from the US on this.
Recapping the top story, the Border Management Authority says 6 children who were intercepted while crossing into South Africa illegally at the Beitbridge border in Limpopo were reunited with their parents and deported to Zimbabwe. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
EFC returns to Johannesburg this Thursday. The undisputed heavyweight champion, Matunga Triple H Jikasa.
And Triple H power.
is back on top of the mountain. Takes on the undefeated Senegalese warrior, Adama Diop.
Adama Diop takes the KO.
Plus, middleweight contenders collide as JT Botha battles Mwandile Hlongwa. EFC 132, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sports Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sports.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Now leave the SABC and see the tower block lit up, 27 stories of light. Move from Auckland Park into the shadow of the Hillbrow Post Office Tower.
This is the English service of the SABC. Here is the news, read by Patricia Carr. A member of the Planning Committee of the President's Council, Mr. Nick Turnich, has been appointed chairman of the Council's Community Relations Community.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. The Daily Discourse. More than talk, real understanding.
Nearly 10 minutes past 10 here on the Daily Discourse with me, Joanne Joseph. And right now, we are taking you live to the Madlanga Commission. Yolande Farrow's still on the witness stand, talking about the role of the TMPD.
This is the Madlanga Commission update on SAFM.
Is how the Ngapesheya bid looked at the time it was submitted. But this is how it looked at the stage of adjudication, which should tell those involved in the process that there was a change somewhere in between. That's not even a red flag. It actually tells you that something improper has happened somewhere between submission and adjudication. So that's why I think, yes, some people will actually be involved in criminality, impropriety, bid rigging. But some will not be involved in that, but will be complicit in the sense that they do not actually look for what they should be looking for, which makes corruption, bid rigging, etc. easy.
Definitely,
as I said, it's just a comment. But if you
Definitely,
want to-
Chairperson. We also picked up there was one person that actually, because of you, remember you are in uniform. So if somebody of authority comes, you're supposed to check certain things. You are spot on with that. That is even that we picked up, that you should, irrespective who comes to you in a position of authority, if it is that you must have A, B, C, D, E in order to do F, you should not just because the person is an authority. You are 100% correct with that, Chairperson. All of those things came to the fore now. And we will have to do consequence management on each and every one. You cannot use the excuse that somebody in authority came to you, and even if the person said, I'm going to bring it later, and maybe it never came. So you must just do that. We are also looking at those things, Chairperson. You are correct in terms of that.
Mrs. Kakan.
Thanks, Chair. Perhaps I've just got two issues, and I think it comes to your point. You say that there are obviously steps that you're going to take going forward about, and obviously, I think yesterday you were given some homework about what was happening in the department, in the police service, Metro Police Department. And yesterday I did put it to you, or probe that there is some difficulty with, or I find some difficulty, but I couldn't point any further about management and having these circumstances, as the chair puts them, that then enable others to be corrupt or otherwise within the department. And one central figure is Commissioner, your Deputy Commissioner Dlamini. If I may ask you to go to file 1, page 93.
File 1?
Page 93.
I'm there.
Are you fine, Commissioner Bale? Or it's that challenge with the file?
No, yeah, I'll share with the chair. I still have the same difficulties yesterday. My 93 is a P-raise suspension letter, but I'll share Dlamini with the chair.
I do apologize.
Chair, through you, mine is the same as Commissioner Baloy. So my file is also the same as Commissioner Baloy. But
Don't you have a copy that you just take out from somewhere and share with
Let's
with
just
the
ask it.
commissioner?
Thank you. Mine is marked, unfortunately.
I think Commissioner Baloy, they've got something against females here. We can pick that up.
I'm starting to think that.
I can think that as, if it comes to the two of us.
Perhaps, Chair, either we can stand down for the copies to be made,
Or perhaps,
Or I
why
can
don't
wait.
you move on to some other point and then we come back to this later? Will that mess up your...
Yes, it should. But it's to the witness more than...
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You see that is a precautionary suspension letter from U.S. Dlamini, and that's Umashi Dlamini.
That's correct.
And you
Sorry, can I ask why the evidence leaders? Oh, it's there now. It's fine. Remember, the public is also watching.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That's your signature at the bottom.
That's correct.
Okay. Could you just take us through how this happens? I find it peculiar about how does it work and what are the actual allegations, because one is not clear from what Commissioner Dlamini is saying. He says there are serious and damaging allegations. He's essentially, apologies, Chair.
No, continue.
Yes, he was simply saying that there are serious and damaging circumstances or that warrant for him to be put on precautionary suspension. Could you just explain on that, how it works?
If you look at the date, this was the 20th of March. Just the end of the 18th of March, Deputy Commissioner Dlamini's name was mentioned just by the end of the day. The morning of the 19th, I went to his office and I said your name was mentioned yesterday. Depending on what is coming out today, me and him had a conversation that this will be the route to go. What happened then, I engaged with the HR department because I wanted to know, what do you do in a case like this? Because it's not that I had an investigation and then in terms of that investigation, it's easier to say, based on ABCDE, I'm going to do this. So they said, I was then by the festive season lawns busy at the national one. Then I was informed that he's looking for me on the 20th. And then he's got a document he wants to hand over to me. When I got the document, I wanted to know from HR, what is the way forward? And if you will just allow me, I will just read into record what HR has actually responded to me. Because I wanted to know, in this case, what need to do. Then HR said, Chief, I have perused the policy and it does not make provision for such a request. It is normally initiated from the side of the employer. Then HR also said, however, from other documents I perused, it is possible as long as the employer suggests it with reasons and does not demand. The letter from him is a request and the reasons seem valid. I would, however, suggest a cover letter where you can indicate that after consideration of the request and the reasons, you support the request. So that I received from HR. What I want to do, I wanted it to be procedurally correctly from the start. That is why I seek advice from HR how to go about it. So the letter you will see on 93, he did write, where he requested, and then as per HR on page number 94, I then did that cover letter. Although I signed that, and I signed it, you will see on page 1995 is my signature. So that is how this came about.
For the record, please tell us where you were reading from just now. That
I'm reading from
the advice from HR.
Yes, and I will also submit it with my supplementary. Our person from HR is Nadia Salias, and I will submit this for the commission.
Thank
how
you.
This came about.
Thank you.
Thank you, as Chairperson.
Just for the record, at page 93, that's Deputy Commissioner Dlamini's request to be placed on suspension.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct, Commissioner Baloy.
Okay.
That's correct.
So when you say you supported the request, you mean you accepted
Yes,
that there were
definitely.
valid reasons for him
Definitely.
to be placed on suspension?
Definitely, I accepted it, Commissioner Baloy. I also, on the 19th already, early the morning, I went to him and said, because it was just by the end of the 18th of March, his name was mentioned, and it was more into context on the 19th. And I did inform him in person, whatever comes out now, today, that obviously then on the 20th, there will be type of action will be taken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloy.
Just for completeness, I think if you compare that, and maybe the circumstances are different, that with the letter for Inspector Piri, where there are specifics. Just maybe for the record, when he says serious and damaging allegations, I think he's covering the nature of the allegations. Are you able to share exactly your understanding of your discussion as to what it is that he was concerned about? Was it corruption? Was it?
It was obviously the allegations against him in terms of the 19th of March. Was obviously that possible, like you said, interference, etc. So that was the nature of the discussion.
So it was around the issues of interference and
100%.
And are those, they are not written anywhere insofar as that is concerned?
It's part of the investigation.
Part of the investigation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's part of the investigation.
All right. Commissioners, I think it's, the next part would have been the APSS, but another witness with more detail will come and deal with it. And I think I'm unlikely to get more from the witness on the topic.
All right, all right. Any other topic to deal with then, or is this the end?
This is it. It was just one of the APSS, but I think it's better that we deal with it
dealt with
other
by the other
witness.
Thank
I
you.
don't think I'm going with that.
Thank you,
with the
Mrs.
witness.
Hassan. Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Farrow, good morning again. I just want to get clarity from you. You must understand that this commission has a limited duration within which to do its work, and its terms of reference are limited. And we have a few investigators and a few evidence leaders. Tshwane and TMPD are big institutions.
Yes.
You mentioned 3,200 or
3,600.
3,600 officers within TMPD. It's unlikely that we as the commission will cover all of them. So it's in that context that I want to ask these questions that I have to ask. What, other than the security services, what are the other services that are procured by TMPD through the tender system, and where you as Chief of Police or your predecessors have had to sign an SLA?
I'm sure, Commissioner, is the uniform tender. And then also the service animals, because you need to, the feed and the vet services, etc. And also if I look at it,
I'm assuming tech, the machines that your
The
officers
speed.
use to track speed and drinking and driving.
speed equipment, 100%.
And then ticket collection,
No, that is ARTO that we have.
is it ARTO?
We, unfortunately, in Johannesburg, ARTO is already with us for a very, very long
So
time.
there are no service providers that collect on behalf of the city of Tshwane?
I've got my own back office
And
with
then
my staff.
healthcare, you're not using Mr. Matlala's company to test your officers when they are sick?
No, they've got medical aid.
Fitness,
Fitness is done by my in-house academy.
so it's not Medicare 24?
No, we don't need Mr. Mkala for that.
All right. Now, I will put it no higher than this because there must still be a determination on this. But it would appear that in relation to the tenders that we have looked at, that the SCM system within Tshwane and TMPD is compromised. What is your comment on that?
I agree.
So your policy, is great that you have a written policy, but it's clear that people are not complying with it and are finding ways to go around it and to get their preferred service providers to be appointed even when they don't qualify to be appointed. And the example Chair made is a case in point.
Commissioner Kumalo, definitely, I agree, because we wouldn't have been sitting here if it wasn't compromised. So I agree with you 150%.
My worry is that the Commission has so far only looked at the security services. What assurance can you give the Commission and the public, the South Africans, that in their capital city, in one of the biggest metros in the country, in relation to these other services, you've mentioned 7, you've mentioned uniform, animals, tag, ticket collection, we can scratch out. You said healthcare is internal. But in relation to those 5, can you give South Africans the assurance that there was no infiltration by criminals who have hijacked the system and they are making millions, if not billions, out of taxpayers' money and nobody's paying attention to it? Can you give the country the assurance that that is being looked at and you are comfortable that there are no issues there?
Commissioner Kumalo, as I said, we are going to look not only into these 2 tenders that has been identified or flagged by the Commission. We are looking at the entire, everything that you've mentioned that's got to, even if it's, remember some of those were already awarded or some of them are already in place. This investigation is not going to stop now, and it's only because there's as you said, you've got the terms of reference when it comes to the Commission. Everything needs to be looked at when it comes to this. And the other thing that I'm looking at also is all these services, can we have it in-house? That is my next question. Is it possible that I can maybe appoint a vet for the service animals? Is the amount of service animals of such amount that I can do it? Is the care that they need of such amount that I can do it? I'm looking at all of those things. Is it necessary that we must have all these service providers, or can I build in-house capacity? So the word for me is in-house capacity, then all these things will disappear. So those are the things that I'm also looking at. In terms of the other tenders, that's going to be part of the terms of reference from my side is bigger than yours, Commissioner Kumalo. I unfortunately have to now, mine must be bigger. I cannot just say, okay, let us look at the 2. I need to look at everything and also to see those that are implicated, how far are they implicated in this regard? I cannot just look into the 2. I need to look at how far and how long have you been busy in this regard. So that is also part of my scope in terms of the investigation that we are looking at. Yes, we are looking at this 2 now, but I have to look at it, and then all the staff there. If all the staff are compromised, unfortunately, I will have to start from a clean slate. I will have to start from a clean slate. So, Commissioner Kumalo, that is my answer. That I cannot just look into, let us look at 9 and 10, but we will not start from 1. I have to look at the whole value chain, and I did already said that. But we're first starting now with this, and then we're also looking back into all the others as well.
Are you able to create positions within the TMPD, or would you have to seek permission from someone else?
I will be able to, Chairperson. We are busy looking at the microstructure at the moment. So I am looking at, I even put, I want 2 legal services within my office. I've already recruited 2 very young and Metro Police officers that got there. They studied and they've got it, and I've given them like small things to be the liaison between the legal department of the city of Tshwane and my one, to look at litigation, to look at if you go to court, prepare yourself to go to court, that we don't lose cases. Look at summonses, look at trends. Are you making mistake on the summonses, or is it deliberate? So we are already starting with that, and I've given them that. So yes, the answer is yes, I can do that.
All right. I'm asking that in the context of your response to Commissioner Kumalo, that, for example, you want to take out of the need for procurement, the appointment, for example, of vets.
Yes.
For your animals. If, for example, there will be a huge saving instead of going out to tender, if there will be a saving, if you have your own vets, and you do not have to seek someone else's permission to make appointments, why not? Because then you are outside of all this corruption, bid rigging, and all of the things I referred to to earlier. Of course, the appointment of vets is just one example. I'm sure when you sit down, you would be able to remove from the procurement process a whole lot of other services. I was surprised when we went through the WhatsApp chats here to see that there are even tenders for the delivery of refuse bags. When I grew up, someone employed by the municipality would just throw that in, throw it into the yard, and you've got your refuse bag, and the municipality did not have to issue a tender for that. I just find some of these things mind-boggling. Again, that's just one example. If one sits down, a whole lot more could be removed from the tender system. But I guess it also requires political decisions, political will, and so on. So some of these things may be outside of your scope of, or your purview of functions.
Commissioner, what you can, and if I just take the vet services as an example, you trained the Metro Police officer to additional that is on the mounted patrol unit. You just enhance his skills. You don't need to have a vet on standby. That can be done. So I'm just using the example of being a vet. You are on the unit, you know exactly, you love horses because obviously you will have to, you know what to do. So we can just enhance your skills.
Thank you. Mr. Skakane, you had indicated that that's it, eh? We are done.
Thanks, we're done, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you very much. You are excused.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you so much, Commissioners. Also for assisting us to see the gaps, and also that I would like to, any progress that we make, even if the Commission is not, it's concluded, that we still, I would like to still report on all the things that I said is going to happen. I don't want it to just be a talk, so, and then to say that I obviously will know where to submit to say that I've done this now, we've done this now, we've picked up this, and we're busy with that investigation, even long after Commission has concluded. I would really like to have that homework as well. Thank you, Commissioner, so much.
Thank you. I like to say that Section 217 of the Constitution was included in the Constitution for the benefit of us all, that is South Africans. But what organs of state have done is to turn it on its head and actually use it against us. That's very unfortunate. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Do we adjourn so as to make the switch?
Yes, Chair, and just sort out the files. What I was thinking, Chair, is that perhaps we can take an early tea break instead, and then come back with a new witness.
Just 25 minutes to 11 here on the Daily Discourse here on SAFM. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been bringing you live coverage of the Madlanga Commission from Pretoria, and there's been an adjournment there now. On the stand this morning, the Commissioner, Yolanda Farrow, she is from the Tshwane Metro Police Department, and she was questioned about procurement in regard to the TMPD system. Of course, the Madlanga Commission looking into these allegations around fraud, allegations of the mismanagement of contracts and maladministration. And of course, she has come through talking about the processes that are required here. And let's face it, the tender processes are lengthy, they are complicated. One of the things that Judge Madlanga was saying just a moment ago was that when he was growing up, there were no tender processes for particular functions that were covered by government and the municipality. He gave, for example, the instance of the delivery of a black bin bag, right? And he said when he was young, whoever picked up the garbage would deliver that bin bag. And years later, then there's now a tender for those bin bags to be delivered. So he gave that as an example of the kind of complexity and the proliferation of tender processes that has now occurred within the public service system. They've taken a break now, and they are going to resume a little bit later on. I understand that another witness is due on the witness stand. But just remind you as well of some of the big stories that we are tracking for you today and some of the conversations that we're going to be having in the next few minutes. First of all, we're going to be talking about the arrival of lenacapavir in the country. Now, remember, just a few years ago, it wouldn't have been unthinkable for people in our country to not even be able to access ARVs, right? You remember that our period of AIDS denialism resulted in the deaths of almost 300,000 people, and yet we are in an entirely different era now. The first batch, or the first couple of batches of injectable HIV prevention doses arrived in the country, and we're going to be speaking to Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi in a short while to find out exactly what that entails. And in fact, he is on the line to us. So Minister, good morning to you. I understand you're joining us from Paris this morning, and we really do appreciate your time. Very exciting that this first batch of 37,000, close to 38,000 doses of lenacapavir has arrived in the country, and that is going to allow you, no doubt, to roll out a phased implementation plan that you are going to outline for us in the next few minutes, hopefully. But first of all, just give us a sense of what exactly lenacapavir is and how it works, please.
Yeah, morning, Joanne. Morning to the listeners of SAFM. Thank you very much for having me. Indeed, these are very interesting times. We are very excited because, as we said last year, lenacapavir is going to be a game changer. This is an injection that is injected intramuscularly every 6 months. That means twice a year. And it has been shown in trials that when you take it every 6 months, the chances of getting HIV/AIDS are almost zero. In adolescent girls and young women, it's 100%. They are 100% guarantee that they'll never contract HIV and AIDS. And it gives 96% coverage in men having sex with men, which we still regard as very high. So whichever way you look at it, that's why we call it a game changer.
I mean, it is astonishing that we have reached this level of research, that we're able to come up with a dose like this. But give me a sense of this. I mean, you referred to one group there, or a few groups, I should say, young women. You referred to MSMs, men who have sex with men. Who is eligible to take this drug, or who do you recommend takes it?
Well, Joanne, we want to give it to everybody, but obviously that's not always possible at all times. So what we did is to choose people who we believe are very vulnerable, people who, if they receive the injection, it will break the back of the HIV/AIDS pandemic. For this reason, last year we called what we call a roundtable meeting, where the South African National AIDS Council, with all its 18 sectors, that include the government, business, researchers, academics, civil society, traditional healers, traditional leaders, we met together with international partners like the World Health Organization, UNAIDS, and others. We met and mapped out, in the case of South Africa, who are those groups of people who, if they receive this injection, the back of HIV/AIDS will be broken, such that we achieve our goal of eliminating HIV/AIDS as a public health threat, at least by 2030. So from that meeting emerged 4 different groups. One, as the topest priority, is adolescent girls and young women, because these are the people who are targets of sugar daddies. As you know, over many years, they've been the people who are mostly infected by HIV/AIDS. So they are our priority number one. Then they are followed by pregnant women, because we don't want them to give birth to babies who are HIV positive. And then lactating mothers. And lastly, key populations like sex workers and men having sex with men. These are the people who are targeting mostly.
So that is part of your implementation plan, and that's very interesting indeed, Dr. Motsoaledi. Just give me a sense of how you actually plan to roll it out.
Firstly, because you can't just get everywhere all at the same time. We have selected 350 health facilities in the high burden districts. You are aware that districts are not the same in the burden of HIV/AIDS. We've got what we call high burden districts, and about 27 of them have been identified as high burden districts. For instance, we don't have any high burden district in the Northern Cape at all when you use the criteria we've been using. So we chose these facilities in the high burden district, 350 health facilities. That's where we're going to start, and then we'll build up from there.
Minister, the cost of this is obviously an important question, because we know that, of course, HIV costs government quite a lot in the long term, and if you can mitigate against that, all the better from a preventative point of view. But what is this drug going to cost government?
I was losing you a bit. What are you talking about, the cost? I lost you a bit.
Correct. Yes, that's right. What is the cost of this drug, Mr. Motsoaledi, Dr. Motsoaledi?
Well, look, lenacapavir has been there in the countries like US, and at a very, very, very exorbitant cost, I must say. It is selling at 28,000 rand, not rand, dollars. $28,000 to treat one person. And if you bring it to South Africa at that price, it's about 450,000 rands, which means no African country can afford it. So what happened is that Global Fund moved in. They secured 2 million doses at a reasonable price for African countries like us. In that 2 million doses, we've been given 920 or so, but 900,000 doses have been given to South Africa. Now the question is, after that 900,000 doses, what happened? Now what happened is that last year, when we were at the United Nations General Assembly, Joanne, two things happened. One of them is that the Clinton Health Access Initiative, headed by former president of U.S. Bill Clinton, and the Unit 8, which is an international funder, and VETS RHI, and ourselves came together with a pharmaceutical company called Dr. Reddy's, to see that we can produce lenacapavir at a very, very, very reasonable price, moving from $28,000 to only $40. And maybe you'll then need to understand the background to this. Ordinarily, under international trade laws, when a pharmaceutical company comes up with a new drug, a new medicine, a new injection or whatever, a medicinal product, when they come up with it, they are legally entitled to 20 years intellectual property right. That means for 20 years, they are the only ones who can manufacture it. Nobody can imitate them. And they sell it at whatever price which they believe is going to help them to recoup their what they spent in producing that drug through research, innovation, and all that. Now, many people, influential people, countries and companies around the world, approached the American company that produces lenacapavir and told them that humanity cannot wait for 20 years. And it's foolhardy to find something that is a game changer and say people must wait for 20 years simply because they can't afford it. So they pressurized Gilead. It issued what is called voluntary licenses. That means a voluntary license is whereby the company that innovated that drug forgo their 20 years intellectual property and allow other companies to produce a generic at very, very affordable cost. So one of the pharmaceutical companies that got that voluntary license is called Dr. Reddy's. So we have negotiated with them. They are going to produce it at $40. The second thing that happened in September is that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did the same thing with another company called Hetero, whereby it will also produce a generic. Now, we are in the center of negotiations with all the stakeholders, including UNAIDS, World Health Organization, to make sure that a South African pharmaceutical company also get a voluntary license to start producing here at home. So those are the issues that are happening. But in the meantime, we'll be implementing using this 900,000 doses bought by the Global Fund.
Very, very positive news, Dr. Motsoaledi. Will this also be available at private facilities or just public health facilities for now?
To start with, as I said, it will be available in 350 health facilities. But obviously, our intention and our goal is that, like all the other ARVs, it must be, it will be available in all health facilities. Now that I'm mentioning ARVs, obviously people associate it with people who are HIV positive. I just want to add for people to remember, lenacapavir is not going to be given to people who are HIV positive. It's going to be given to people who are HIV negative for them to stay negative. That means it's a prevention, not a treatment. We are going to choose only people who are HIV, meaning that before you get lenacapavir, you must be tested. And if you are positive, we put you on ARVs. If you are negative, then we put you on lenacapavir so that you don't get HIV.
Minister, lovely speaking to you today. That is Dr. Erin Motsoaledi, our Health Minister. Minister, please have a croissant for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
You are listening to Joanne Joseph on SAFM.
Right, we are heading for 10 minutes to 11 o'clock here on the Daily Discourse with me, Joanne Joseph. Thank you for joining us. If you've just tuned in, we've come out of the Madlanga Commission. They have adjourned for the moment, and they're going to re-adjourn a little bit. I mean, resume a little bit later. That was the word I was looking for. Right now, something else is happening in Pretoria. President Cyril Ramaphosa is receiving the letters of credence from ambassador designates, right? So whoever will be running ambassadorial missions in South Africa will be presenting their credentials to the president this morning. That includes the American ambassador, Leo Bozel. You know that he experienced the process of a démarche the last few weeks. And he will nonetheless be among those presenting his credentials this morning. So I want to take you live there to Pretoria just to get a sense of what the president is saying about this.
We will be investing approximately 1 trillion rand over the next 3 years to build roads, dams, schools, hospitals, and other public infrastructure. A debilitating energy crisis is now behind us, and we have embarked on a range of far-reaching reforms to overcome challenges in the water sector and in the logistics sector. Our policy and regulatory environment has proven to be resilient, offering certainty to investors who are looking to South Africa as a favorable destination to invest and to do business in. As we pursue our apex priority of inclusive growth and job creation, we are firmly committed to deepen our cooperation and collaboration with all countries in the world. We hope that your time in South Africa will contribute to building meaningful, sustainable economic partnerships between our country and your countries and your companies. As South Africa celebrates 30 years of advancing peace and friendship, we further look forward to engaging with you and all other global partners on matters of mutual concern. Our world has become increasingly complex. Multilateral diplomacy and respect for multilateral systems has become all more crucial. In a world that is beset by profound and interconnected challenges, whether they be conflicts, wars, the climate change crisis, or the proliferation of poverty and inequality, we know that global solidarity and deepening cooperation are our surest means to overcome them.
That is President Cyril Ramaphosa. He is speaking there at the Sefako Makgatho Presidential Guest House in Pretoria, where he is receiving letters of credence from several republics that are going to be represented ambassadorially here in South Africa: Angola, Barbados, Cuba, Denmark, the United States, Lebanon, Malaysia, Mauritius, a number of countries who will be giving him their letters of credence today. So that is what is happening in Pretoria right now. And the Madlanga Commission remains adjourned for the moment. Let's listen to some of your voice notes. Thank you for communicating with us over the course of the morning. One of the issues we spoke about was the SANDF's deployment in the Western Cape, and particularly in the context of Mitchell's Plain, where there have been a number of deaths this week. We asked the question as to the visibility of the SANDF troops on the ground.
Good morning, ma'am. I would like to reflect on the issue around Western Cape crime. Look, the police are doing their best. I mean, the police myself, I understand. The police are doing their best. SANDF is there to assist. However, it comes back to us as the community. What are we doing to assist our government? Yes, I understand the issue of drugs. Where are these drugs coming from? Where are these drugs delivered to? These drugs are delivered to our homes, and we as the community, we are not exposing these drug lords. We are actually protecting them. So the provincial commissioner in the Western Cape is doing his best. But if we don't assist the police, SANDF will be there, but there will be no change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Lovely to hear from a member of the police who has her ear to the ground in that area. The other issue we discussed a little bit earlier on was the issue of the Public Service Commission, or the public service in general, and the kind of changes that the President has signed into law of late. We're hoping it's going to change the face of the public system and ensure that delivery is the order of the day. Let's listen to your voice note on that.
Hello, Joanne. Welcome. We're happy to hear your voice. Great show from the onset, eh? But I'm so excited about this, Mr. Mavuso. I wish he was the Minister of Service Delivery. The guy's got so much energy. I love it when he says, if you're not, excuse me, if you're not a civil servant, it means you're an evil servant. I love this guy. Thank you so much for the great show. Mutibang.
Thank you very much for that. It made me laugh too, and I thought he was really forthcoming in that interview with us, and I find him very energetic, and I really hope some of that energy is going to be infused into the public service system as we go forward. So on the story of the lenacapavir arrival, this rollout of over 37,000 doses, which Minister Erin Motsoaledi spoke to us a while ago. Richard is commenting. He says, fantastic. Now we can be just as promiscuous as we like and only get to pick up a few STDs. We all know what causes HIV, so why don't we just behave appropriately? Richard in Wilderness. I mean, it's a good question. I wonder from a social point of view how it is going to change our behavior. I mean, I think quite often of how now that we, now that we are in the habit of being able to access diabetes drugs and high blood pressure drugs and all the rest of it, whether we really watch our diets, for example, the way we ought to. One of you saying that the health minister is on the right track with this latest move.
Good morning, my sister. Mbongo, Sondisa, Mbuyisa. Hey, my sister, if people were not like fighting for positions, I was gonna say Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi should be the premier of the Eastern Cape. That gentleman, he can fix Eastern Cape. But then, like, there are those ANC leaders there who cannot allow him to be the premier because they want the positions. Otherwise, he's the only person who can fix that falling apart Eastern Cape province. I pick up Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. May God bless you. Long live, comrade. Motsoaledi, comrade, long live. I think you are the only person or member of the ANC who is not corrupt. Well done.
I think we should have kept the minister on the line to hear that that compliment. Thank you so much for that. One of you says, Joanne Joseph, I missed that voice. Use this voice in the Middle East. The war will stop. I salute you, Joanne. I'm not sure my husband would agree with you. I think he probably thinks it's the source of a fair amount of conflict. But thank you very much for that. Thank you for the kind messages that have been coming in over the course of this morning. One of you says, hi, Joanne, please remind the health minister about people like me who have been in the queue for an eye operation for 3 years now. That is at Bongani Hospital in Welkom. And A in Welkom has sent us that message. And I'm really hoping, A, that you will be able to be pushed, to the top as there's progress with the number of operations that need to be dealt with. It's not easy. And I wonder how much better it will become if we are to implement the NHI. I've been speaking to very many people from Europe and different parts of the world in the last few weeks who've been talking about their own universal healthcare systems. And what worries me is, on the one hand, it's it's wonderful that it's possible for everybody to be able to equally access universal healthcare. And I think that's so important from a democratic point of view. On the other hand, I've also been hearing some horror stories, and these are anecdotal. These are people's personal experiences with the system. I've got one friend who moved to the Netherlands not so long ago, and she had an accident, broke her leg there, was not able to get the requisite care because it required a little bit more complexity than just, essentially prescribing Panado. And so she left there, she came back to South Africa, she had an operation here in a private hospital, which she thankfully could afford, and within months, the situation was rectified. And I've heard quite a few stories from other parts of Europe that tell much the same kind of story about universal healthcare. So we need to think very carefully about whether we are going to be able to implement that system properly to make sure our people get the healthcare they deserve. Getting back to the issue of gangs and exactly what civilians are facing on the ground in areas like Mitchell's Plain, it is a worrying issue, and we want to continue hearing from you on what you are experiencing on the ground in areas where the SANDF has been deployed. But right now, I want to take this voice note from someone who's living in one of those areas.
Morning, Joanne. I'd like to disagree with the previous caller. I'm speaking on behalf of the people of Mitchell's Plain. I'm not from Mitchell's Plain, but I'd like to disagree with her. As a civilian, you can't be fighting gangsters. You cannot be fighting gangsters as a civilian or as a community. The women and men in blue need to do that. It's their job. They were appointed to do so, and they sworn in, or they swore in to do so, to fight crime. So it shouldn't be on the community's shoulders to say they need to do more. No, it doesn't work like that. They were appointed to fight crime. They need to fight the crime.
Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us. We'll take more of them in just a short while. Right now, it's 11 o'clock. Ondelambana is standing by with your latest news.
Thank you, Joanne. On the top stories, questions raised about Pharaoh's management in the Madlanga Commission, and the number of house fires doubled during Easter weekend in the city of Cape Town. For SFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good morning. Questions have been raised about City of Tshwane Police Chief Commissioner Yolandi Farrer's effectiveness in managing the Metro Police Department. Farrer has testified that she was on leave when a service level agreement was concluded between the city and El Shaddai Security Services. El Shaddai Security Services is one of the companies that is entangled in alleged tender rigging in the city of Tshwane. Madlanga Commissioner Sandile Khumalo has described it as a red flag that Farrer only became aware of the service level agreement with El Shaddai Security when she returned from leave.
I mean, that is a red flag. It's worrying that these things could be happening and your department is responsible, and but for the leave, you would have had to sign it. And because you were on leave in January 2026, somebody who was acting in your stead signed them, and you only saw them after they were signed. That is a serious red flag for me.
The CEO of Save the Children South Africa, Gugu Xaba, says they're impressed with the manner in which the Border Management Authority has handled the issue of the undocumented children at the borders. This is as there has been several interceptions of undocumented children during Easter weekend. Recently, 12 children were separated from their parents when the bus carrying 32 undocumented Zimbabwean nationals was stopped at a roadblock on the N1 near Bloemfontein in the Free State. The BMA also confirmed that they intercepted 6 children from being smuggled into the country at the Beitbridge border post. Xaba says BMA officials did everything according to the prescripts of the law.
Border management has improved. Border management was able to identify that these are children. They documented them. They reached out and found social development and handed over the children to social development. Social development will then screen the children. They will identify vulnerabilities. They will then refer them. One, they can use temporal spaces where they can keep the children whilst they try and find their relatives in South Africa or back home where they are coming from.
The Border Management Authority says 6 children who were intercepted while crossing into South Africa illegally at the Beitbridge border in Limpopo were reunited with their parents and deported to Zimbabwe. The children aged between 7 and 12 were intercepted with the help of the South African National Defence Force yesterday. BMA Assistant Commissioner Dr. Nkuliseni Luengo says their parents were also undocumented and they were trying to enter the country illegally.
We have engaged with the Department of Social Development on the basis of the discussion that they had at the interviews that they had with the children. They found that 3 children obviously had one parent, and then other children also had parents that were obviously traveling with them. Because there was confirmation that they had parents, we didn't place them under obviously a place of safety. We had to unfortunately to deport them together with their parents because they didn't have all the travel documentation.
The city of Cape Town says the number of formal house fires across the metro has more than doubled this past Easter holiday compared to last year. The Fire and Rescue Services recorded 30 fires at formal dwellings compared to last year's 12. There was, however, a slight decrease in the number of informal residential fires. Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, JP Smith, says the numbers are concerning.
Particularly as we head into the winter where the fire risk in the home increases as the use of various heating methods increase. I appeal to residents to always keep fire safety top of mind. Make sure your electrical systems are up to code, service heaters, gas and paraffin stoves and other flammable devices, and keep your wits about you when using them. Our emergency services do fire education outreaches, but we also have a comprehensive list of safety tips on the city website.
The head of a body representing global airlines says recovery in jet fuel supplies could take longer even if Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz under a ceasefire agreement. Willie Walsh, Director General of the International Air Transport Association, told the media that while the fire news had prompted early market reactions, supply chain disruptions would likely delay full recovery.
If it were to reopen and remain open, I think it will still take a period of months to get back to where supply needs to be, given the disruption to the refining capacity in the Middle East, which is a critical part of the global supply of refined products, and not just jet fuel, for other products as well. So it will probably take months.
Recapping the top story, questions have been raised about City of Tshwane Police Chief Commissioner Yolandi Farrow's effectiveness in managing the Metro Police Department. I am Onde Lambana for SAFM News Headlines at 11:30.
The Daily Discourse on SAFM with Joanne Joseph, unpacking the issues that matter. The Daily Discourse on SAFM, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
It is 6 minutes past 11. Thank you for joining us here on the Daily Discourse. We are live with all the latest stories that are breaking at this hour. The South African Communist Party is paying tribute to Chris Hani in Ekurhuleni right now. That is one of the stories that is developing, and maybe we'll dip in a short while just to give you a sense of the mood there as that takes place. Another big story that we're going to be following for you in the next few minutes is the Riverlea secondary story. Now, we brought this to you a little bit earlier on, or I recapped what had happened there overnight. Essentially, the Riverlea secondary story has experienced its fourth fire in 4 years. This is really uncanny. How is it possible that this has happened at a school several years in a row? What is the cause of these fires? Who is behind them? And right now, Lebohang Maile, the Gauteng MEC for Education, has been there. He has spent the morning there. And essentially, he's been doing a tour of the school. I take it that he has been addressing the school body and the parents and teachers, perhaps. And we're going to try and get a picture of exactly what has been said as he visited the school this morning. But it's very disturbing indeed. An entire block of the school completely destroyed, and then also the laboratory and the library of that school destroyed. So what is going on there? We really need to get a sense of exactly what is happening there. Some of your messages are coming in as well, and I'd love to continue hearing from you. Let me just remind you as well of our details. If you would like to phone into the program, we are standing by to take your calls. Our studio line 086 000 2032. You can WhatsApp us on 0614 104 107. And the Madlanga Commission at the same time is about to resume. So we're going to take you there in just a moment. But for now, one of you is talking about the issue of jet fuel and how the supply of fuel has been affected by what has happened in the Strait of Hormuz. As you know, with Iran having blocked that strait, it was impossible for many of the ships carrying oil supply to pass through. Of course, with the ceasefire in place for 2 weeks, a temporary ceasefire as we understand it, the oil is and other products as well are going to start flowing through that strait again. But Naveen from Durban is saying to us, hi Joanne, jet fuel will take months for supply to get better. Wow. Rich people sure know how to find ways to keep prices high when there is a disaster. We have to accept it, but we don't believe it. Naveen, believe it or not, I mean, I was reading this morning about airlines like Lufthansa actually creating a kind of plan for the months ahead where they will have to cut back on flights on certain routes. So, you know, let's remember that when this happens, when the oil supply is going out, I read some analysis on this the other day that spoke about how oil tankers are virtually traveling at the speed of a bicycle. Right? So they are heavily laden. Many of them are the size of 4 football fields. And it takes them time, an enormous amount of time, to travel to their various destinations around the world. Those destinations also happen to be very far away. So we're talking about tens of thousands of kilometers that have got to be covered for the oil to reach a particular point. Now, you remember before the Strait of Hormuz was closed, several oil tankers would have set off, and those ships are still in progress. Some of them are still on the high seas, transporting their fuel. Some of them have already reached their destination. But the fact that there was a lull for a time during which the Strait of Hormuz was closed, you end up with a situation where we are going to experience that backlog at a later stage. So we may not experience it right away, but in the coming weeks, we are going to feel the consequences of not having had access to oil in several places in the world. So that is one of the big stories that we are watching for you at this hour. I'm going to take you right now to one of our callers who's standing by to talk about the violence in the Western Cape. Pasika is on the line. Pasika, thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts on what is happening in areas like Mitchell's Plain right now?
Thank you very much, ma'am, and greetings to also your listeners and your show. You know, there is one thing I've been observing, not just now, but for some time, that whenever there is something wrong going on in our communities, whether it's violence, whether it's theft, whether it's any kind of criminality, we always, as community members, jump to blame government representatives, I would put it that way, where we say government. And at some point back then, when I was in high school, not in varsity, I remember we were given a definition of government where it was saying it's people, by the people, for the people, meaning that we as citizens and community members in particular, we are government ourselves, and we seem to lack a role on how we can play a meaningful part in combating these violence and theft and criminalities that are taking place. I'll make an example in my community. We've got an unlicensed liquor store that is run by a traditional leader, and where it's supposed to be the one who is closing down illegal liquor outlets that are going on there. And meaning that now the role of people is just to observe, knowing who is doing something wrong, but we want to blame officials that we have elected to represent us in parliament, while we look far when it comes to us. And it's something that we need to reflect and look at ourselves on what role are we playing into seeing the criminalities that are taking on in South Africa as citizens.
Absolutely.
When we seem like to be clapping hands and folding arms and just on our phones and saying, no, one word will come and do this, what word will come and do this.
No,
Like,
I completely agree
role
with you there,
exactly
Pasika.
as people?
We've all got a role to play in this. And if we don't play our part, we cannot sit back and just depend on government to enact legislation or put more police or the army on the streets. Thank you for that, Pasika. Good speaking to you. Right now, it is nearly 13 minutes past 11. The Madlanga Commission has resumed in Pretoria. Let's take you there.
This is the Madlanga Commission update on SAFM.
And then, can you go to the last page, which is page 6 of that statement? Now, do you confirm that this statement is your statement?
I do confirm that.
Do you stand by the contents thereof?
Yes.
And then, Deputy Commissioner, do you confirm that the signature on page 6 is your signature?
It's my signature.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this point, just to note that I think Commissioner Kumalo's bundles are not signed, the statements. We will sort them out at the end of the hearing. But Commissioner Baloyi and the chairperson's statements or the witness statements should be duly signed.
But the content is the same.
The content is exactly the same.
Commissioner Kumalo's.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
The one that we've just looked at is signed.
Well, then my attorneys did a sterling job. Thank you then.
Just to find out, Mr. Musigiri, the 6-page statement, has its content not been incorporated into the longer statement, the 15-page statement?
It has been.
It has. Oh, all right.
Yes, it has been, Chairperson.
So basically, we should work with the 15-page statement.
In an ideal situation, I would have said, let's do away with it, so the first file, but out of abundance of caution, because I also received the second file, in case things went missing, I would want to keep it, Chairperson.
All right.
Ideally, would have said, let's do away with it.
Okay.
But for the better part of the witness evidence, we'll be focusing on the duly incorporated statement. That's correct, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Please continue then.
Thank you, Mr. Bolhayes. Then can we move to the second file?
Something important which we forgot
Deputy Commissioner. Let's have your names on record, please, your full names.
Yes.
Do you want to state your full names? Yeah.
I will, Commissioner. All my names is Sean Ian Edward Eugene, and my surname is Bolhuis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, on the second file, you'll see on the spine, it will say supplementary statement of Sean Ian Edward Eugene Bolhuis. And then, the first page is an index, and then if you go on the third page, on the first page, it's an index, and the second page, it's a table of contents, and the trim lines there, you'll see that is your statement. Can you confirm that this is your statement, Commissioner Bolhuis?
I can confirm.
Yes, can you go then to page 15 of that statement? Do you stand by the contents of the statement?
I do.
Thank you. And then you lastly confirm the signature appearing on page 15 of that statement.
That's my signature.
Thank you. Commissioner Bolhuis, for the better part of our engagement, we will be focusing on this particular file. If we need to go to the first file, I would draw that to your attention. So keep this one closer. And perhaps let's start on page 2 of the file right in front of you. You have already put your names on record. Can you then start with the introduction part at paragraph 1 of that statement and read that into record? As we discussed earlier, where you need to elaborate, you can elaborate. Where we need to interject, we interject, especially the commissioners, if they need some clarity, they will do so as you go through your statement. So please do not be alarmed when they interject to ask clarity-seeking questions. I might often also do so. Let's start at paragraph 1 then.
Noted, thank you. Commissioners, I am an adult male South African citizen and the Deputy Chief of Police for Training and Innovation in the City of Tshwane Metropolitan Police Department, which is known as TMPD. Having assumed this role on 1 June 2024, I was recommended by a panel consisting of the Chief of Police and other senior city officials. The facts deposed to herein are within my personal knowledge and are to the best of my belief both true and correct, save where context indicates other.
Thank you. We can move to paragraph 3 under the topic of your educational and career background.
Deputy Commissioner, the save where context indicates otherwise suggests that what you say may not be true and correct, depending on context.
No,
I'm sure that's not what you meant. I suspect it must be the lawyers who let you down there.
Lawyer language.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners. Educational and career background. I'm a career traffic officer / Metro Police officer since 1992. I started my career as a traffic officer in the then Pretoria municipality. The traffic department then evolved into the Metro Police Department. I am still employed by the City of Tshwane as a Metro Police officer. In total, I have 34 years of experience in the municipality. I have a career-related ITO 3-year national diploma and an ITO 4 higher diploma. I have a valid top secret security clearance certificate, which will expire in December 2026. I am in the process of starting the vetting process again.
Commissioner, let me just stop you there. Can you explain what you mean by, what is the purpose of this top security clearance certificate and the process it takes, and whom expected to undertake or go through that process. Keep in mind that a witness came before this commission from a different municipality and gave evidence that, in fact, there is a requirement or a directive under that department that high-ranking officials ought to do the vetting process for the purposes of maintaining this. So what I need you to at least inform us in the commission is the processes involved, whom, according to you, in the TMPD is required to undergo this process to obtain the clearance certificate.
Thank you. I will do that, Commissioners. Let me start first by indicating it's not a lawful requirement yet in the city, although it should be. I do believe with the security committee in place, it will be a recommendation and a premise for the city to start from ensuring high level of security aligned to the MIS document that's approved and implemented and also adopted by council in the city of Tshwane. I can't recall the date. So those bases or building blocks are in place, but as I indicated, it's not policy yet, although all high-level positions in the city of Tshwane, when advertised, it's now a requirement within the advertised that you avail yourself for vetting purposes, for security clearance. In the Metro Police itself, I am a Deputy Chief of Police. It is imperative that your senior management of a Metro Police must be vetted. If I had a way to force it through, I would, as I'm also the Chief of Staff, which I will explain later. But it is cumbersome for me to think, and I won't mention names, that certain senior officials refuse to get themselves vetted. I immediately availed myself for vetting because it's required of me in my position when I deal with sensitive information, not only internally in the department, but also in the city of Tshwane, but also on IGR levels, that I can deal with these documents procedurally and lawfully in a correct way. I gladly submitted myself for this vetting process, and so must all other senior officials. Some do, some don't. But that's a matter that we are still addressing within the department and in the city.
What is RGR levels?
Excuse me, Commissioner?
Said also in RGR levels. What is that?
We, in IGR, Intergovernmental Relations, we work a lot with sensitive meetings, sensitive material. So not all of it, but some of the information, especially if it relates to maybe a national state that we find ourselves, and there's sensitive information, you need to deal with that according to the MIS document. So vetting is very important.
Deputy Commissioner, when you say some officials refuse to be vetted, are we talking the general vetting or the top secret vetting? Because my understanding is there's a difference. There's the vetting that all staff members or all officers, law officers in TMPD would be subjected to. And my understanding, of the evidence of the chief of police was that annually there is vetting of all officers, and that is conducted every year. And I thought that's different from your top secret.
I can explain that, Commissioner.
Please.
What the Chief of Police was referencing to, if I understand your statement correctly, is the security clearance. It's also commonly known as vetting, but it's not a full vetting. It's just security clearance. That process is ongoing on a yearly basis, where we check for criminal and illicit records against members within the department and certain members in the city when so requested by the city manager. The vetting I'm referring to is a full vetting done by, in our case as a municipality, by State Security Agency, and it is a part lifestyle audit, financial check, proper vetting, your whole history, all your girlfriends, all your boyfriends, all your ex-wives, all those things. They check it all, and then you're either cleared or you're not cleared.
And that's the one that you say it's not yet required by law?
Yes.
Is that the one you're referring to?
It's not in formal policy yet by the
Yes.
city, but it should be.
Okay, that's what I mean, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So you and I are cleared, Commissioner Boles.
I'm cleared of all of those things.
You and I are cleared.
Both of us, yes, we are cleared. Yes, Commissioner. So maybe the rest of the room must leave now.
Commissioner Bolhais, are you aware of any steps or measures that the city has taken, at least in future, to ensure that this vetting is not an issue, or it's not raised as an issue by the incumbent officials?
Yes, as indicated in adverts now for senior positions, it is a requirement that you avail yourself for vetting. On lower positions, it would be for security clearance or to check for criminal records. Those adverts are it's public knowledge, you would see that, so it's open to the public. And then the other portion that I just touched on, it is the job of the security committee, which has been established. Is it in full swing, full working? I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure of the doings of the security committee at the moment, but they do sit from time to time, and part of their function would be to advise the city to put in policy in place that certain levels and certain positions, depending on the type of position and what you do, what's your functionality in those positions. For an example, if you work in the finance office or the supply chain management processes, you should be properly vetted. Properly vetted, and then also senior management, whatever is deemed senior, and then you can get different types of vetting. Not everyone will be vetted top secret. In my capacity, I need top secret. Another person in another position in senior management might only need secret or something like that.
Thank you, Commissioner. You don't have to mention the names. I think those who will come will ask them the same question. And if there are reasons why they haven't been vetted, they will explain themselves. Can we then move on to the next topic, which is your responsibilities as the Deputy Chief of Police? That will be at paragraph 5 of your statement.
Thank you, Commissioners. Responsibilities as the Deputy Chief of Police, paragraph 5. As the Deputy Chief, Training and Innovation, I'm mainly responsible for the Team PD Academy, where we train Metro Police officers, traffic wardens, other officials, as per our academy curriculum. I am further responsible for police innovation, which include research, analytics, and information management for the department. Paragraph 6, additional to the above position, I am also responsible for the work and functioning of the staff officer, which you might know it as a chief of staff, but it's a semi-military terminology. Staff officer or chief of staff to the chief of police. I fulfill that role because the position is vacant at the moment. The position is currently on a brigadier level on the approved structure. Paragraph 7, my responsibilities here include: 1, although the position on the approved structure is on a brigadier level, I am functioning on a deputy chief level. 2, oversight on the Office of the Chief of Police. Apologies. 3, strategic level coordination within the department. 4, high-level administration. 5, high-level IGR, specifically with Gauteng Government, SALGA, SAPS, et al. 6, drafting of specific departmental documents, such as SOPs, directives, official letters for internal, which is the city, and external purposes. 7, represent the Chief of Police at EXCO, MACO, Section 79 committees, high-level external meetings, forums, and/or events. Paragraph 8.
Commissioner, before you go there, can you just inform the Commission, this position of Chief of Staff, how long has it been vacant for? Do you know?
This position has been vacant for a very long time. Previously, I acted in this position officially, but then it was on a deputy chief level. The structure was then subsequently changed and put on incorrectly on a brigadier level. The new structure that has been developed for the department, proposed structure that still needs to go for approval, it has been put back on a deputy chief level where it should be. It's a high stressful position, the right-hand person to the Chief of Police, as indicated by some of the functions that I have already mentioned. We have, over time in the city, a lot of vacant positions. We have had in the Metro Police many vacant positions for a long period of time. Since the Chief of Police, Yolande Faro, has been appointed, I believe it was October 23, I think so. She immediately lobbied the city and the city manager to ensure that at least critical positions and high-level positions are being filled. Subsequently, the department has filled numerous positions. We're still in a position where we have put forward critical vacancies that are now very close to advertisement level, subject always to final approval by the city and available budget, but these are funded vacancies. One of the positions that we hope to fill would be this position of Chief of Staff, because it's a critical position.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we are about to move on to paragraph 8.
Yes. Commissioners, paragraph 8. I'm further responsible for the management and coordination of unfair labor practices, arbitrations at the South African Local Government Bargaining Council, SALGBC. This includes 1, attending step 3 grievances, and this is grievances as per the COT collective agreement on behalf of the department/Chief of Police. 2, attending conciliation when required. 3, attending consultations with internal role players and appointed legal representation in preparation for the Bargaining Council. And 4, attend or coordinate the actual arbitration at Bargaining Council and or CCMA.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can we move on then to the next topic,
Yes.
which involves your further responsibility again? Now we're talking about the section deals with your acting stint as a caretaker of the asset protection and security services. Can you take us through that?
I can. It's number D, my acting stint as caretaker of asset protection and security service, paragraph 9, Commissioners. I was the caretaker for asset protection and security services, known as APSS, for the period 1 July 2024 to 28 February 2025, as the divisional head, in brackets, deputy chief post, was vacant. The function was transferred from the office of the city manager back to the TMPD as from 1 July 2024. Paragraph 10, this position was ultimately taken up by the appointed Deputy Chief Revo Spies on 1 March 2025. Paragraph 11. As the caretaker of APSS, I did high-level management and oversight over the division. Paragraph 12. Upon assuming this task, I had to deal with the relocation of the APSS from the Office of the City Manager to the TMPD. I must hasten to state that when the APS transfer was done, I was not provided with a handover report as one would expect. I am aware, however, that a handover, and I say it in brackets, report was ultimately emailed to the Chief of Police by Ms. Paledi Marota, where I was also copied on the email on 10 April 2025. Now that is 9-10 months later, and I've already given over or handed over the function to Deputy Chief Spies. But continuing, Commissioners, on paragraph 13, the email is attached to Chief Yolande Faro's statement, which I attach as Annexure SB1, which I will refer to. Paragraph 14. During my testimony, I will point out from the handover report that on what I agree with and what I disagree with in relation to the following subtopics. 14.1, the background to the transfer. 14.2, human resources related matters. And 14.3, budget and procurement related matters. 15, when I received the transfer of the APSS, I was aware of the tender in question comprised of the watchman component and the ad hoc component. Paragraph 16, we, in brackets, the Deputy Commissioners and Chief of Police, had monthly budget meetings and APSS budget performance was mentioned/discussed. During my stint, we dealt with ad hoc individually and provided services only with the necessary approvals, including documentation.
Deputy Commissioner, can you just explain what you mean where you say that you dealt with ad hoc individually?
As the tenders commissioners make provision for ad hoc services, we would receive a request from a service delivery department that they need security services at a specific place, which is not part and parcel of the normal day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month deployment. Then we would assess that request, basically by doing a security assessment to review the situation to determine whether this is a legitimate request. And then we must sort out the budget thereof. You will find later, and I think it was also mentioned by Deputy Commissioner Spies and the Chief of Police, Ms. Faro, that we were on a continuous basis under-budgeted for the function. So the yearly budget allocated on a regular basis for security services were not sufficient. So it would have been improper for us to approve any ad hoc site without looking into it. If a service delivery department then requests, we do an assessment. If we agree with them, then we determine the type of security that needs to be placed or put in place, and then they need to provide us with a GL or the service delivery component within the city, falling mainly under the COO, would have to look for money. Last resort would be to approach the CFO to ensure that there is money for this, whether it will be available immediately or whether that will be adjusted during the budget process from implementing an approved budget right through upliftment of funds right through the adjustment budget, so that at the end of the year your books balance and you don't sit with unauthorized expenditure. So that's how myself and the Chief of Police dealt with ad hoc sites in that manner.
Yeah, just so I understand properly. So you have a budget for watchman services, I think that's what it's called. That's what's allocated.
We call it watchman services for the security services, yes.
So you've got that budget. Does that budget also serve the ad hoc appointments, or are ad hoc appointments funded by the service units or your clients, basically?
If the, Madam Commissioner, if the budget is sufficient, which it was never, and that's clear in our financial planning and statements of the city, then it would have covered ad hoc as well. But due to the limited funds available for a financial year, if it's not an ad hoc service that has already been identified and has then become almost a semi-permanent situation, then no, you would not have funds available in that budget. You would have to look for additional funds, as I have already explained. That is how it was.
And the final approval for that scenario where you have to find additional funds.
Yes.
Because this is not one of those that have almost become permanent now. Where does it lie? Does it lie with the CFO, or it lies in the TMPD, the final approval of that kind of request?
Such final approval will not lie within the TMPD unless it is covered with the approved budget. The Chief of Police, in her position as the group head or the head of the department, has certain authorities under, whether it's automatically delegated per legislation or procedure and protocol, or whether it's purely from the MFMA. So she can manage her own budget that's been approved and allocated. So if it falls without that budget, there's a process where we, like, I'll use the example of upliftment of funds. A document is drafted by the department, recommended by the Chief of Police. Then it goes through the processes recommended by the CFO, and it's finally approved by the accounting officer, which is the city manager. So in such cases, the city manager would sign off on upliftment of funds. The CFO, I'm not 100% sure to where his authority stretches, but I do believe he has the authority, in our case it's a he, Mr. Manisi, has the authority, and I speak under correction, to work within the budget that has been approved for the city. He can allocate and reallocate certain funding. Whether all of that must be signed off by the city manager or not, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Can you please go back to paragraph 11 of your statement and just clarify that? And please also explain to us, what is the size of the APSS? How many people are in that division? And who has authority in relation to signing of documents? Like, for example, if an invoice comes in from a security company, who authorizes it for approval? And also, who has authority in terms of issuing of work or additional sites or ad hoc security services that have to be provided? Because when you say, I did high-level management and oversight, it can mean different things to many people. So just explain it the way you understand it.
Noted, Commissioner. I can elaborate on that. What is meant by high-level management oversight over the division, I'm sure you would appreciate from my testimony already given, I have a full-time job position as the Deputy Chief Training and Innovation, which is a full-time position. Then I've got another full-time job as the Chief of Staff. Then I've got a part-time job in coordinating step 3 grievances and arbitration matters. In a department of about 5,000 people, you can imagine how many cases I need to deal with on behalf of the department. So my high-level management and oversight over APSS probably took about 15 or 20% of my energy and time to just ensure that from the onset where we received this function without a proper handover, as is, foot stewards, back to the department, my main aim was to, on a high level, to management to understand what this big thing entails. What is this big thing that I'm dealing with now? How many sites do we have in the city? Is it a true reflection of what we have? How many sites are priority? Why are they priority? How many sites do we cover? We don't even cover, I think we cover less than half of all our sites, but I believe Deputy Chief Spies might have given much more information on that, so I won't repeat that. And then also to ensure that the day-to-day running, which is done by Director Malachi and his team, is just there's oversight on that. So I didn't have hands-on experience on most of the matters. Some of the ad hoc sites that were referred to us as an example, I made sure, because it would cause additional expenditure, that I went on site personally with the team to determine what the status is. One of such sites would be Klipgat, waterworks, where a contractor finalized their duties. No planning was made prior to that for security. We just got the information through to my office that within a month's time or so, this company is going to vacate, they're done with the project, now we must secure that. And if we didn't secure that, there could have been damage or vandalism into the millions. So as a city, as a department, we were basically forced to do so. And then we followed that process that I've already explained. So my high-level management and oversight was very limited, and I had no reason to mistrust at that time Director Malachi. Seemingly on paper, and what I know from him then, he was an experienced senior manager in security. He had support, not much, but he had support, and they ran that division. The amount of people in that division, I can't go level to level, but it's approximately just shy of 1,300 security guards on contract still, not even fully absorbed into the city with all the benefits, but I believe Deputy Spies might have addressed that also, I'm not sure. And then some level of supervision and some level of management, and then you got to Dr. Malichla, no, I forgot his name. I'll get to his name just now, and Mr. Mashlangu and Director Malachi. And part of the function in those middle levels or junior levels, we had teams that's supposed to do, obviously, also the checkups at the different security sites to ensure that the contract that was awarded, a 2.9 billion rand contract, is managed correctly, and if a security company indicates that they, for argument's sake, place 4 people, security guards at the site, that actually happens. So I had no, at that stage, mistrust in the system, and wanted to ensure that they run with the day-to-day running of this division and running the contract. On the sideline, we immediately had to start, as I said, with the fact-finding information,
Commissioner Boles, I don't want you to go too far ahead,
okay,
because it may be that in your statement you're still coming to these things.
To some of it, yes.
So maybe just deal with the role you played in the allocation and invoices, their approval. And then the rest, I think the evidence leader will lead you through your statement.
Thank you. At a certain stage in my stint as the caretaker, I required Director Malachi to provide, once invoices have been signed by the operational component and then signed off by himself, he had to bring those invoices to me for co-signing. So he would approve the invoice after all the checks have been done, and I would co-sign. That was just a management mechanism to ensure that on paper there is nothing untoward. The allocation of ad hoc sites, it's not a written down process, but it was the practice that at least I had in place, that my office needs to be informed of ad hoc sites, like that explanation I gave about Klipgat and others. Because of the possible operational impact, and I am talking about that later, but I can just say this, it had to be brought to my attention because of operational, financial, and contractual impact. So never did I give the impression or the instruction to Director Malachi or his management team that they have a free rein or a carte blanche pertaining to the allocation of sites. Because you have to work within a budget. You have to work according to your priority plan and the sites that you have to secure. So if you then do your own thing, we're not going to stick to those things.
Commissioner, you say that you would approve because on paper everything would appear to be proper. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Yes. Now, yes. On the ad hoc appointments, did you not notice that there was a disproportionate allocation to, for example, an entity called Gubis 85? I think it's a PTY Ltd, not a CC, yes. Gubis 85. Did you not notice that it got a disproportionate number of allocations compared to the rest of the entities? Its allocations were far higher than those of other entities. I'm asking this in the context of your testimony that on paper everything looked proper. That may well have been so, but it should have, or rather alarm bells should have rung when this entity's name keeps popping up whenever there are ad hoc allocations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Look, I did not, in the time that the invoices came to me for co-signing, I did not pick up anything immediately, and I didn't have any mistrust at that time. However, and I do give evidence about this later, when the director of MAS, Management Admin Support, Director Veli Nwandule, he's also responsible for finances, when he indicated that there could be some irregularity with invoices. At that stage, the finance section has indicated both to me as the caretaker and to Director Malachi that they will have to follow a certain financial procedure, which then became the procedure they needed to follow, not bringing invoices back to me for co-signing. So that then stopped, and that financial procedure that was implemented by the financial section was then followed. And then subsequently, the director of MAS Nwandule picked up the irregularity, because they will be in a better position to pick up on this, because they have the contracts, the SLAs, the monthly expenditure, and if there's any further expenditure than what would have been the baseline from previous months or allocated to a certain service provider, they would pick it up. And subsequently, they did pick up. But I do give evidence about that a bit later.
Commissioner Bolhayes, at paragraph 13, we do mention a report which I want us to have a look at. You will see that on the very file that you have, that report would appear as the very first document. It will say number 1, just after the index to the annexures.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the Chief of Police, Yolanda Faro, testified that when she received an instruction that there has to be a transition of the APSS from the City Manager's office to the TMPD's office, that she tasked you to oversee that process. With that in mind, she testified that there was a report. That's something that also you touched on. That report was meant to facilitate the transitional period of that department. Would you accept that ideally you would have been at least the beneficiary of this report to assist you with the transition?
Yes, definitely.
Yes. And Commissioner Faro also testified that she received this report, unfortunately, somehow 9 months later, and this report came from a lady called Baledi Marota. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
In fact, you should be aware because you were copied on that email.
That is correct.
Yes, and the correct date would have been the 10th of April 2025.
That's correct.
And lastly, on that score, you would have, at least at that stage when this report came to your knowledge, you would have ceased acting, or at least being a caretaker of the SP.
That is correct. I already provided a full handover in writing in the month of March. Yes. to the newly appointed Deputy Chief Spies.
Yes. But I want us to have a look at this report because it was meant to benefit you, or at least to assist you in the transitional period. We did say in your statement that we want to touch base on some, I think, 3 topics. You will see that on top, for the record, can you just read at least for the benefit of the Commission, the title of that document?
The title of this document, and it's from the Office of the City Manager, Commissioners, report on the transfer of Asset Property Protection Services Unit from the Office of the City Manager to the Tshwane Metro Police Department.
And then can you move to the purpose of that document, or at least the report?
The purpose of this report is to transfer the Asset Property Protection Unit function from the Office of the City Manager to the Tshwane Metro Police Department, TMPD, with immediate effect.
And then can you move into the background mentioned on that document?
I can. The background, paragraph number 3. The Executive Mayor issued a letter dated 15 April 2021 titled Placement of Asset Protection Function and Personnel in City Manager's Office. The said letter stated the following: the implementation of the processes regarding the absorption of security guards is a critical deliverable for this administration. Extensive consultation and discussions have taken place on this matter to ensure it occurs seamlessly. It is for this reason that I took the decision to have this process placed and administered out of the City Manager's office through the department led by Mr. Nawa Pillay. Furthermore, it is critical that the current asset protection function and personnel that have been identified who are based at the Tshwane Metro Police Department, TMPD, are moved to the Office of the City Manager to report under Mr. Pillay with effect from 30 March 2021.
Just there, Commissioner, what do you understand by this initial move? And paying attention to what is mentioned on the very first sentence of what was supposed to be a letter of the 15th of April 2021, just to give us context of what your understanding is.
Yeah, firstly, I was not involved in this process at all. And then that first sentence, the implementation of the process regarding the absorption of security guards is a critical deliverable and so forth. My understanding of this is we have had, I don't know the time frame, but I think it's from 2019 onwards. We've had this council resolution that mentioned absorption of security guards. And there was a total mentioned, etc., etc. I don't have the information in front of me. But the absorption means that the security personnel that is in your service through a contract, whether that is a certain time period contract or a month-to-month contract or service delivery contracts that you have in place, when you do an absorption, you look at bringing those people, those security guards, into the employment of the city. They then become fully fledged employees. That is how I understand the term absorption.
And with your limited knowledge, as you said, you are not involved in this process, but what I'm tapping into is your experience, as you said, that you have 34 years into at least working in the city of Tshwane. What is the situation now with the absorption, if any, of the security personnel?
Thank you. I believe we have...
Do you mean, Mr. Musigiri, in 2021 or after reabsorption back to TMPD? What stage are you referring to?
Commissioner Bolhase, more directly to after when the unit was handed back, because it seems to us that the purpose then was part of it was the absorption. And then now, when it was handed back, what is the situation? I mean, the more pointed question would be, was that done within your limited knowledge?
The purpose, as I understand, was the transfer of the function. So the question of the absorption followed more that purpose. So the same people who were doing the function within the TMPD then get absorbed within the office of the city manager, but the purpose being more the transfer of the function, as I understand it.
Part of the question would relate to the debate that has been going on as to, I suppose there was a debate, or at least there has been a debate as to the pros and cons of outsourcing and absorbing some of the security functions into the city.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I can speak to that. My belief is that from this time, and I'll come to the part where the function has been moved back to the Tshwane Metro Police Department, but from this time, 15 April 21, up to the time that the function was moved back to the Metro Police Department, not much has moved in a direction of full absorption of the security guards. Since the appointment of Deputy Chief Spies, there has been a real movement. I do know for a fact, I've sat in some of the meetings, there has been consultative process between Deputy Chief Spies, the department, and Group Human Capital Management and political leaders and leaders of the city to fast-track this process, and there is a plan in place that has been adopted by Council. I can't speak to it, I don't have all the information, but that this absorption process is now moving forward. This will mean that certain benefits will come in at a certain time and other benefits will come in at another time. So that process is ongoing. I hope that touches or answers the questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolhes. Can you then read into the record the last paragraph of point 3 under the background?
The last paragraph states, Commissioners, the instruction by the Executive Mayor for the Asset Protection Services Unit to be transferred from Tshwane Metro Police Department to the Office of the City Manager was implemented as directed. The transfer included the movement of staff reporting under Asset Protection Services Unit and Cost Center 4923 for the budget and expenditure management of the unit.
And then, most importantly for us, would you move to the next page under the topic human resource related and just deal with that, what is at paragraph 4.1.1.
Do you want me to read it?
Read into the record and then we can debate what that meant.
Noted, 4.1.1, under human resources related matters, the subheading is staff and organizational structure. The organizational structure of the Asset Protection Services Unit was not amended during the transfer of the Asset Protection Services Unit from Tshwane Metro Police Department to the Office of the City Manager. Therefore, the transfer of the Asset Protection Services Unit back from the Office of the City Manager to Tshwane Metro Police Department will not affect the organizational structure of both departments. The Asset Protection Services approved structure consists of 4,106. Of this, there are 31 official employees, there's spelling mistakes there, apologies, on a permanent basis, and a further 1,287 contracted security officers.
I think this ties with a question that was raised by Commissioner Khumalo earlier on. Can you then explain to us on practical levels, what did this mean, especially when you have to deal with a human resource, and in terms of what you were receiving now as part of your responsibilities?
Yes, I can.
Maybe before you do that, the mathematics here doesn't seem to add up. You have 31 officials on a permanent basis and 1,287 contracted security officers, and yet in the first sentence you say there was 4,106.
I can explain that, Commissioner. I'll make it part of my explanation. Firstly, Commissioners, if I received this document in time for my caretakership, I would have not agreed in fully with the statement made here. You can't just say something and then it becomes the truth. It doesn't work that way. So just to say that the structure is moved from one place to from one reporting channel to another reporting channel, and there is no implication or no difference, doesn't just make it the truth, or doesn't make it correct, or doesn't make it practical. Let me explain. Let me first explain then, Madam, what you have brought up, and then I'll carry on with the rest of the explanation, why I don't agree with this. It makes provision in the statement at the end that the structure, and they make reference to the approved structure, consists of 4,106. So the structure they're referring to is the organizational structure of APSS. Those are the boxes, as you well know. You've got your divisional head, all the different levels, and so forth, all the way down to the bottom levels where you will find 1,287 contracted security officers. So I don't have a problem with those figures at that time because I can't verify it. I'm assuming it's correct. The 4,106 is still the approved structure, but most of those positions are vacant. That's why the mathematics will not make sense. But then to transfer an approved structure, in this case 4,106, to the Metro Police and make an indication that there is no implication or an assumption is incorrect. It is not the practice of a municipality nor a department such as the Metro Police Department to have an elaborate structure with vacancies on it. And it's clear that in the time period from April 2021, let me get the date right, 15 April 2021, up to the point where this function was transferred back to the Metro Police, that there was no, I can't say no, I don't know, there wasn't a serious attempt and project in place, plan in place to fill the vacancies of this approved structure of 4,106. Now this is moved back to the Metro Police. Now the Metro Police sit with all these additional vacancies. That's the first thing. Most of these vacancies will then be unfunded. Why? Because there wouldn't automatically be a budget in place to fill it. You've got funded vacancies on the one hand and unfunded vacancies. If you then look externally, when the AG looks at a municipality and at our different organizational structure, macro, micro, the AG would indicate to us, and has, that you can't continuously for years on end sit with so many vacant positions. Either fill the positions or remove the vacancies, because it becomes an audit query. So that is where the problem comes in for the department. Hence, we've started a process, and I'm in the middle of that process. That's one of the functions I do as the Chief of Staff. I do organizational design and coordinate that process within the department. The structure that we have received, yes, approved at that time, still approved because it's still on the structure, approved structure, is not a feasible structure for the Metro Police. It's not implementable, it's not practical, it's not funded. We are restructuring that process totally, and it will probably be a lesser number because we are not in a financial situation, not the department, not the city, to fill 4,000 positions. I hope that gives clarity to your questions.
What I'm struggling to comprehend, Commissioner Bolhase, is this. You are already inundated with 2.5 posts or positions. And just on the human resource element, and given what you just discussed now with the Commission, would you say this was the best decision to add this transition to your tasks?
Look, Sir Commissioners, I think it was the best decision under the circumstances. I don't want to sound arrogant, but the Chief of Police looked at this and looked at her situation with her top management at that stage and what is available within the team PD, and determined that I would be the best suited candidate to deal with this. And I'm going to leave it at that. Was it the best decision to move this function back to the Tshwane Metro Police? No. Well, you didn't ask a question about it, so I'm not going to elaborate, but I don't think it was a very good decision by the city to do so. Let me pause there.
Maybe let me ask the question differently. Is it possible, would it have been possible to assign this task to other deputy commissioners? And perhaps to be direct, to say someone like Deputy Commissioner Umashi Dlamini, would that have been possible as well?
It would have been possible for the Chief of Police to do so. But if you understand a policing environment or any semi-military environment, when you find yourself in such a situation, let's call it semi-crisis management, where the chief needs to take control of something and it's unsure what will come out of it, and it's an interim situation because we already expected as a department to appoint a deputy chief round about October 24 onwards, between October and December. But you know, with recruitment processes, I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but it wasn't forthcoming, and then the appointment eventually only came in March the next year. It would be typical for a chief of police to give such a function because it's interim to the chief of staff. If it was more on a semi-permanent basis, which we didn't know at that time, she could have made another decision and given it to another deputy chief. We were under the impression it will be anything between 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months, but it ended up being 8 months. So that is my view.
My concern was that you seem to have been overloaded, but I accept that answer. Can we then deal with, because we're dealing with the human resource element, can we deal with the budget and the procurement element of this move? And that would be, if you can just pick it up from 4.2 of that report.
I can. Commissioners, 4.2 is the heading Budget and Procurement Related Matters. 4.2.1, Appointed Security Service Providers. The city appointed 22 security service providers through tender TMPD 02-2016 was supposed to be a /.17 to supply the physical security, in brackets guarding, services to protect the property, assets and personnel of the city of Tshwane for a period of 3 years with effect from 1 February 2022. The monthly service contract for the appointed service providers amounts to 50 million, which equates to 600 million per financial year. On the next page on top, Commissioners, the security service providers provided a total of 2,559 security guards at 545 sites who operate at the CIRA Grade C security grading level to safeguard the infrastructure assets of the city against theft and vandalism. Do you want me to continue, sir?
Yes, because it still relates to the budget, yeah.
For Commissioners, 4.2.2, 2023-24 adjustment budget. The operational budget allocation for asset protection services was increased by 305,611,361 rand from 489,374,219 rand and 15 cents to 794,985,580 rand. This was due to a request for additional funding, request submitted to Group Financial Services for Watchman Services. The original operational budget allocation for Watchman Services was 245 million for 2023-24 financial year, which was not enough to provide the guarding services through the appointed service providers. A shortfall of 305,611,361 rand was indicated. In response to this, the budget for Watchman Services was increased by the indicated shortfall amount to 550,611,361 rand. The 2023-24 capital budget allocation remained unchanged with an amount of 2 million rand under WBS level percentage dash 9.80100.1. And then there's a L or I, PRO1, W, for infrastructure asset protection. The budget provided is for the incorporation of electronic security system. However, the procurement is on the specification level. Should I continue with the indicative budget?
I don't think so.
Before you even go there, I need you to go back just to have a proper understanding of what you were inheriting, essentially. Because if you look at least what is glaring is that there was a clear shortfall already. What would have been the impact of this when it came to you? I accept that this document obviously became only came to your knowledge after the fact.
Yeah. Look, firstly, senior management in the city must all do a Municipal Financial Management Act. I think it's an NQS 6 level course. And it's expected of senior management to know, understand, plan, and proper execute budgets. So when I was instructed to be the caretaker of this function, I knew what the budget was for the financial year. Remember, now we're talking the 24-25 financial year, because the function was moved to us 1st July 2024, correct? When we then looked at the historic information pertaining to this budget, it was a clear indication to both me and the Chief of Police, and I don't want to speak on her behalf, but we work very closely together, that the budgets of the previous financial years were insufficient on a regular basis, if not at all times, which caused whoever was dealing with it, to follow a certain process to ensure there is funds allocated to ensure that services can be delivered through the financial year. I did exactly the same. In the first 3 months, I would determine what would be the actual expenditure. Thereafter, I could do a projection for the remainder 9 months, because you do also in finances in a municipality work with your monthly cost, but quarterly cost, and quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. By quarter 1, you have enough information, 3 months, plus baseline from the previous year, plus historic information to make proper projections for the rest of the financial year, to ensure that service delivery does happen. We had the 22 companies, they provided services at certain infrastructure sites and properties of the city. And then once you determine in your projection that you are going to have a shortfall. It was clear to me that there was a regular short budgeting process, whether that was deliberate, whether that was a financial technique to deal with cash flow. I'm not a CFO, I don't know. But it was cumbersome for us to notice again that this financial year that I was the caretaker or part of it, that we have an under budget. So then we would, and which we did, we will look at the finances and we'll draft a document that is called the upliftment of funds. So a document is drafted to indicate that this is the expenditure, this is the projected expenditure, we're going to have a shortfall of this, that, and the next thing. If you do it properly in the first 3 months and do your calculations and your projections, you can go with such a document to the city and it can be looked at. If you don't do this, you're going to find yourself at the adjustment budget process. Now, the adjustment budget process is exactly what it states. It's the adjustment of your approved budget. You can't legally, procedurally come and ask for more money in an adjustment budget. So if you don't do your work and you come to the adjustment budget only and ask for additional funds for watchman services, then it means the CFO in the city will have to find funds somewhere else within the approved budget and allocate it to watchman services. So that is what I was grappling with, and we went the route of early financial detection to determine we're going to have a shortfall. We started the process of upliftment, and that upliftment process was subsequently approved. It's recommended by the Chief of Police. It is recommended by the CFO. It is signed off and approved by the accounting officer.
And Commissioner, just to understand, this only relates to the watchman service, this budget, not the ad hoc services.
This relates to the total budget for watchman services and all information known to you. If additional ad hoc services comes in, it would not have been included in that, because you cannot do upliftment for funds or adjust your budget on maybes. It must be factual information. The books must balance. It must be available to be audited, to be clear cut that this is the finances allocated for watchman services and expended accordingly. So no, ad hoc services, unknown ad hoc services would not have been covered by that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Would you say, having considered this report, say if you had it when you were being given the task of handing over in a transitional period, would you say you would have benefited from this report if it came to you on time?
I can say I would have partly benefited, but this, in my view, is not a good handover report because it dwells on information that's readily available to anyone if you go look for it. I would have expected a handover report indicating to us as a department this, plus further historic information on the budget. Why was the budget done the way it was done? Why was it short budgeted for? What was the reasons? And what are the information, where's the information on all the sites that have been deemed critical, the sites that are not critical. The sites that we don't cover at all, what has been done in regards to filling the structure, what has been done in regards to human resources, the absorption, it doesn't really touch on that. So I find big holes in this report in hindsight, but it is what it is. As you know, I did not receive this report. We were in the dark and we dealt with it on an ongoing basis.
Maybe lastly, on the issue of the report or the handing over process, did you at any stage ask for a handover report or a handover meetings from the city manager's office, it being the city manager or the group head, Lady Marota, at any stage of the handing over?
Look, it was understood by us that we were supposed to get a handover report. I don't have documentation in front of me, like emails and that, but we did have one specific meeting with the MMC for community safety. I will have to go check my records on that exact date and time, where we had Mr. Nava Pillay and his support team, Mr. Malachi and his team, myself, I believe the Chief of Police was also there, where it was agreed upon that all the information would be made available to us and in writing, emails, reports at a certain time, and that wasn't forthcoming. I didn't, perhaps, in hindsight, made enough of a follow-up, but if you've thrown in a deep end with such a thing, you find your way, and that's what we did. We started sourcing the information ourselves. We looked at what we had in front of us, and we were very busy starting the new tender as well, because we had to immediately, I think we started in August, immediately started with a new tender because the current tender was to expire soon, and it's quite a process in the city to start a new tender. So yes, I know about that one specific meeting. There could have been some emails as well. I'm not confident to say exactly how many or what it was, yeah.
Yes, okay,
I
no,
want,
thank you.
Deputy Chief, I want to take you back to your response to the second last question by Mr. Musigidi. I just want to make sure that I understood you. Did you mean that there is no budget whatsoever for ad hoc security services?
Yes. Look, as I explained before, Commissioner, if ad hoc has come in already and it's now part of the operationalization on a daily, monthly basis, then that would have been counted in and worked in. Look, this was maybe unplanned for, but now it's part and parcel of the operations. That would have been covered by the budget.
But something that may arise from
Unplanned.
the point onwards, that's not budgeted for whatsoever?
No.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Musigidi.
Thank you, Commissioner Bolhayes. And just understand, this is no attack on you. The difficulty we have is that if the handover was mismanaged or was botched to begin with, and you were left to be on an autopilot and you had to find your way, you know, we need to understand, because ultimately we now know that there were challenges that came with this transition when things happened without even your knowledge. And we trying to find out exactly where the problem might be. And this is like I said, this is no attack on you, but it's just trying to understand remember, as the commission, as we said, we don't even know, and the question was posed to you, we don't even know why this unit was initially moved. And it's not even clear why it was moved back again. But when that is done, the handover process is not done in a way that, as you testified, in the most, one would have said, acceptable manner to allow you to do what you're supposed to do. And it's really on that score that I keep on asking you this question to say, did you make sure that you do your best as well to make sure that you are given a proper handover?
Look, once the ugly things come out, it's not so easy to say you've done your best, because you scrutinize yourself and you think to yourself, what could you have done better? So I'm a very hard person on myself. Have we done the best? No, I don't think we have. Could we have done much better? Yes, we could definitely have done better. Could I personally have done more? I should have. And I stand for what I've done and what I haven't done. I'm an honest person. But it's clear, looking back now at what has transpired, that there are elements within the city and in our department that uses the processes and things in place. They use that as a mechanism for their corruption and for their ill doings. We were used as decent, law-abiding, loyal officials. Both me, the chief of police, other officials, we were used because it happened under our nose. And it's shameful. We could have done better, but it comes again to you trust people. You don't want to enter into a space with an immediate mistrust. But if there would have been any form of indication to us, to me, I could have maybe put in more measures in place to ensure that the system is very tight and that wrong things can't creep through. I think that's all I can say about that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Deputy Commissioner, can I just to make sure that I understand the import of what you're saying, are you saying that the movement of APSS from the Office of the City Manager to TMPD, that in itself, is that what you're referring to when you say you were used? And had you known better, you would have responded better. Is that relocation that you're complaining about as you being used and taken advantage of?
Madam Commissioner, not necessarily, but that could be the case. I don't know.
Yes.
I'm referring to once the move was done to the department.
Yes.
And the day-to-day running of the division, which was handled by Director Malachi and his team. In that day-to-day running, yes, under our noses,
yes,
things happened, and in that we were used.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can we then go to what we say, the uglies? Can we now know that you did inherit as part of the transition, this tender 02, 2016, 2017. Can we deal with that? It's from paragraph 17 of your statement, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners. Paragraph 17 under E, tender TMPD 02-2016-17. I inherited the above tender with the transfer of APSS. In this tender, the city appointed 22 security service providers to supply the physical security, in brackets guarding, services to protect the property, asset and personnel of the city of Tshwane for a period of 3 years with effect from March 2022. Paragraph 18,
Commissioner, I think we do have the names of the companies, the 22 companies on record. Can you then go to paragraph 19?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paragraph 19. I had to oversee the implementation of this tender going forward until such time that the new Deputy Commissioner was appointed to take over. On to the next page, 20, paragraph 20. To reiterate the context of the tender, the above tender for the supply of physical security to protect the property, assets and personnel of the Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality originated from a request to advertise, which is a TAR, T-A-R, a tender issued by Mr. Tsukudu Malachi, Director Protection Services, on 8 July 2016, co-signed by the then Deputy Chief of Police Specialized Services, Mr. R.R. Mashlaule, and approved on 19 July 2016 by the then Chief of Police, K.S. Ngubeni, the late K.S. Ngubeni, may his soul rest in peace. The TAR and specifications are attached as Annexure SB2 to Mr. Revospe's statement, and I need to not attach the same herein. The 21. The background to the tender has been dealt with sufficiently by witness Deputy Revospe and Chief Yolanda Faro, which I agree with and do not repeat.
Yes, carry on. Under the topic of uploading of purchase orders between January 2025 and February 2026.
Thank you, Commissioners. Paragraph 22 under F. I have come to learn that the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Gareth Menisi, and Deputy Commissioner Umashi Dlamini communicated with each other on 5 March 2025 by sending messages through Sergeant Fani Nkosi in relation to the creation of purchase orders for ad hoc security services. Paragraph 23. The purchase orders created out of this process were registered on the TMPD system only on the following day, 6 March 2025. These included purchase orders for ad hoc services, ostensibly procured from Gubis 85 Solutions Pty Limited, in the aggregate amount of 13,635,133 rand and 60 cents. In brackets, it gives the number without VAT. It's 11,856,638 and 14 cents plus VAT. A spreadsheet listing these purchase orders is attached as Annexure SB3. All of these amounts were paid to Gubis 85 Pty Limited. Paragraph 24. Though these purchase orders were created and loaded on 5 and 6 March 2025, after my acting stint as caretaker of APSS, some of these purchase orders refers to work and services allegedly provided during my tenure as caretaker. 25. I am aware that Commissioner Revospe already pointed the obvious skewed allocation of work favoring Gubis 85 Solutions Pty Limited. Paragraph 26. I reiterated that I never gave permission, nor was I aware of such allocation of work to Gubis 85 Solutions Pty Limited during the time in question, and in particular January 2025, February 2025, or to any other company.
Commissioner Bolhuis, is that not itself irregular, that purchase orders are only created many months after the work is done? Is the practice not that in order to allocate work to somebody, a purchase order has to be created? Why is it here, for example, that on the 6th of March, you've got purchase orders created and loaded on the system, but the work in some instances was done the previous year in 2024?
Commissioner, I'm not a financial expert, but I'm not 100% sure about that process. I would assume that once the sites have been allocated to a service provider, you would receive an invoice. Then the invoice in the department will go to the financial section. A purchase order would be created, and then I believe it goes to supply chain management, to the buyers, to do something, and then payment from the CFO's office.
So the purchase order is created after the invoice?
I'm under correction, but I do think so. I'm not sure.
I mean, isn't that a problem? Because my understanding of procurement is a purchase order is an indication of the goods and services that you would have ordered, and it will give you an indication of how many people, what is the price, and what is going to be deployed. And that prepares you then for when the work is done, the invoice that is issued will match the purchase order. And you verify, so you compare one with the other and you say, these are the goods and services that I've asked for. They were provided, the invoice matches the purchase order, then I can make the payment. But if you get a purchase order after the invoice and many months after the work is done, what service did you procure and what did you use to procure the service?
I see your sentiment there, Commissioner. We have to also keep in mind that this is an approved contract, approved service providers, and ad hoc services were then allocated to a service provider, in this case seemingly irregular, but let's say for argument's sake it wasn't, and in an approved contract with an approved budget, and then it's invoiced, and then it goes to the department financial section for the further processing, and that includes the purchase order. But as I say, I'm not in a position to speak on finances that much. The CFO will be able to clarify that in detail, and even Deputy Commissioner Dlamini, who's in charge of our financial, overall in charge of the financial section in the department.
But it worries me because you say at some point before the process was changed, you were responsible for co-signing invoices after Director Malachi had approved them.
Yes.
So if you are not aware of the process and we need to get answers from the CFO, it worries me because it means that people who are approving and co-signing invoices running into millions, I mean this is 13.6 million, are not aware what the process is and they are just signing and people are being paid public funds without understanding the process. It's a concern for me.
Noted.
Commissioner Bolhayes, are you then saying in response to the question by Commissioner Khumalo, as, and I use the word loosely, as the head of the department, as the APSS unit, you played no role? Or what role did you play? Let me put that, what role did you play when ultimately it comes to the processing and the payments of the service rendered, especially on the ad hoc basis?
Yes, once the operational part is concluded, let's say documents are provided, invoices are generated from the service provider, and it comes through APSS. It goes to the financial section within the department. Once it's there, I do not play another role there. There is a financial process that they follow that has to be in line with the MFMA supply chain management procedures of the city, etc., etc. So I don't play a role how it's put on the system. We as a city use a SAP system. I don't play a role how it moves from the finance section to supply chain management, and I don't play a role how it moves from supply chain management to the CFO and his office for actual payment. I can, as a senior official, make inquiries about late payments, why this has not been done, was all invoices submitted, those kind of things, but not physically part of that financial process.
I know you say somewhat further on in the statement that you had no involvement, you were not informed about the allocation of these
Yes,
ad hoc
I wasn't.
sites. Your internal operating procedures, they don't require that you should be informed when there's a request for ad hoc services so that you can approve, or even it's just for noting. Don't your operating procedures require that?
It is required. It's not a written down standing operating procedure, SOP. Well, it should be, but it wasn't at that stage. But as mentioned before in some other remarks I made earlier, is when there's an operational impact, financial impact, and contract impact, I must, as the head, as the overseer of APSS, I must be informed. Because although Director Malachi runs that unit or section division, he runs it basically in totality, day-to-day running, managing the contract. If it starts affecting the budget, he doesn't sit in the top management budget meeting between the deputy chiefs and the chief of police to determine what the status is of the budget, the expenditure, what we must do with upliftment of funds, what we must do with the adjustment budget, etc. So it was clear in our communications, in our meetings, in the way we worked, that this information should have come to my office, because prior in 2024, once again, Klipgat is a very good example. We were informed, I was informed about the ad hoc requirements. It was looked into, it was investigated, it was allocated, funds were made available for that. Whether there was good planning or not, that's another matter. That's the internal issues of a municipality. So there's no ways that the management of APSS could have thought there's no need for the head, the overseer, the deputy chief, not to inform him about these ad hoc services, which will have a severe effect on our budget and operational implications. So yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, just maybe let me understand it from a different angle. It is correct that you wouldn't, as part of your job, be involved in confirming that the actual warm bodies were actually placed by service providers as per invoice. That would not be part of your job.
Definitely not. That would be part and parcel of the management and instructions by Director Malachi. And I did mention it earlier as well about the mid-level people that were supposed to go and check up on the service provider. We call it contract management, to ensure that they actually do what they say they do. Because if they don't, there's a penalty clause that must be implemented. That's part and parcel of the contract and the SLAs between us as a city and the service providers. So it would be their function.
Yes, so you are not involved on that level, on confirming the warm bodies were actually deployed, but also you're not involved in the final leg where the processes, the payment processes are engaged. And I'm trying to understand then your oversight role. Where does it start? Where does it end? And is it by design, which is something that this commission might have to speak to when it makes recommendation? Or is it something that had to do with you perhaps being overwhelmed by 2.5 posts that you're already engaged with? Or are there any other factors that maybe we need to consider that led to this difficulty? What's your comment?
Yeah, look, in hindsight, I would say it's a combination of some of those factors, and it was a flawed process. I understand when the commissioner raised the serious concerns about not knowing the actual financial processes, how it unfolds. And if one look at it, standing back and look at it like you now looking at it holistically with a bird's eye view, you need to be more hands-on, especially if your staff is not in place, your systems are not in place, you don't have all the resources. As Deputy Chief Spes is, and as he continues to involve himself more and more into this space and putting systems in place and instructions and so forth, more information is coming out and it's managed in a much better way. So I would believe, yes, a combination of those things, but definitely flawed from my side. Oversight should have included the complete process till it leaves the financial office when it goes to supply chain management. Whether that would have stopped irregularities, I doubt it, but look, if you have to fall on your sword for not doing enough, you have to fall on your sword.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, can we then move to the next topic, which deals with, I think we touched on it a bit, the allocation of...
I'm just looking at time. Maybe let me ask my question and then it will take us to lunch, because I see you have 2 minutes. If you're starting a new topic, it's going to compromise it. Just out of interest, Commissioner Boles, did the Auditor General raise any issues in the 24-25 financial year about the ad hoc security services? Was there any finding in relation to those? Do you know?
I can't recall, Commissioner, but I can't say with certainty. I would have to check. Once again, a CFO would be able to immediately answer that, but I can't recall. I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
And how does it work with your departments? Is there an internal audit that audits individual departments and then you submit your reports for the full audit of the city? Or is TMPD audited individually? How does it work exactly?
We have internal audits in the city. It falls under the Group Audit and Risk Department, GAR, and they have the internal auditors. They do internal audits as they see fit in all departments. They do further internal audits if there's a pre-indication by the AG that there's something untoward or something that they've picked up irregular in a department or in multiple departments. They also advise on a high level what procedures and systems to be and policies to have in place to ensure that we don't necessarily cause our own demise by causing unnecessary audit findings. Then in the department, in the Metro Police Department, we have a very small component that works closely with the internal auditors, but also looks internally to educate to coordinate and to manage possible audit issues, and to ensure that management is aware of where there could be issues and where management action plans must come into place to ensure that we rectify matters. So those are the processes in place.
And will you check for us to see if they did not flag this issue of
For
allocation of
IPSS.
ad hoc security services?
I will check in the break. I'll see if I can find that information.
You may have to do it in a supplementary statement.
That's fine.
I don't want you to just say, I checked, this is what they said. Because remember, this must be evidence before the commission.
We will do so, Commissioner, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Let us adjourn and resume at 2 p.m.
James files criminal charges against Minister Tolashe, and Flora Munama appointed new MMC for shared services in Tshwane. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good day. Action SA MP Darlene James has filed criminal charges against Social Development Minister Nokuzola Tolashe at the Cape Town Central Police Station. James says the charge relates to the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. She claims that Tolashe, who was receiving alleged gifts as ANC Women's League president, has misled Parliament for failing to declare 2 luxury vehicles registered under her 2 children. The party's Women's League has denied knowledge of the vehicles in media reports. James says the vehicles were allegedly from unknown Chinese donors